Welcome to each and every one of you to the NBN 21 Leadership Summit. For those who don't know me, I'm Margaret McDonald, the Executive Director of the UN Foundation's Nothing But Nets campaign. And I want to thank you for joining us as we venture to malaria on the front lines. While of course we wish we were together in person, we have an incredible program for you today, tomorrow, and Tuesday for those who are joining for our virtual advocacy day. You will be virtually transported, no passport required, to the malaria front line, spanning from remote indigenous communities in the Ecuadorian Amazon to an internally displaced persons camp in Borno State, Nigeria. You will see firsthand the heroic work of scientists, health workers, and community leaders who are working on the front lines to fight malaria and now have the additional challenge of COVID-19. You will learn from issue experts and passionate advocates and have the chance to engage and ask questions of the Nothing But Nets team throughout the program. You will be trained on how to be an effective advocate for life-saving programs like the U.S. President's Malaria Initiative, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, and UN agencies like the WHO and UNICEF. You will be further informed, equipped, and inspired about the role you can play and the actions you can take to end malaria for good. But before I go farther, I have to acknowledge it has been an extraordinarily difficult year. The COVID-19 pandemic has upended all of our lives in one form or another. Many of us have loved ones who have suffered and even died from this dreadful disease. Here in the US and around the world, we continue to face the ugly realities and impacts of racism, sexism, xenophobia, and discrimination. COVID-19 has further exposed the underlying and significant inequalities in our country and around the world. It can be overwhelming. We have also seen the power of people coming together to stand up, raise their voices, demand change, and take care of one another, from making sure our neighbors have enough food to eat or have been vaccinated, to activists peacefully but forcefully demanding change. We have seen many of you who, despite all the challenges of this past year, have continued to raise awareness, funds, and voices to advocate on behalf of children and families who needlessly suffer from malaria. And that gives me great hope. Now granted, I'm an eternal optimist, but it is my sincere belief that this year, which has further exposed our weaknesses as well as our interconnectedness, can be an inflection point that will compel us to work together for a better future. For people who live in our communities down the street, across the country, and around the globe. As Martin Luther King Jr. said in his letter from Birmingham jail, quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly, end quote. And ultimately, that is what our work is all about. The UN Foundation's focus is coming together to solve big global challenges and to work together towards big global goals, also known as the Sustainable Development Goals, to end extreme poverty, reduce inequality, and protect our planet. And specifically, Nothing But Nets work, your work, our collective work, is to address the absolute injustice of malaria, a disease rooted in poverty and inequities. Malaria, a preventable, treatable disease caused by a mosquito bite, has been eliminated in most of the world's wealthiest countries. Yet, it's still a threat for half the world's population, particularly children, pregnant women, and vulnerable people living in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. Together, the global community has made incredible progress over the last 2 decades, saving 7.6 million lives, reducing malaria cases by 40% and deaths by 60%. This is thanks to the tireless efforts of individuals and partners like those we'll hear from today, and thanks to your effective advocacy. Yet, a child still dies from malaria every 2 minutes, and that's unacceptable. We hope that Summit will further empower you to be on the malaria front lines and to achieve a healthier, more equitable world. With that, I'd like to thank our sponsors of the NBN 21 Leadership Summit, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bayer, SC Johnson, and Vestergaard. We're so appreciative of their generous support and partnership, and we'll hear from each of them throughout the program. I'd like to take a minute to thank our major donors, particularly Dr. Simon Estes, a world-renowned opera singer who has raised more than $500,000 to protect children from malaria, and the Benito and Francis C. Gagin Foundation, who has contributed more than $500,000 and is currently offering a $100,000 match for all donations made through World Malaria Day. I want to thank our partners, Aptiv, Cotopaxi, Parachute, and Shoe for Good, who have built social good into their business models and creatively and generously support our life-saving work throughout the year. And thank you to our advocacy partners, ASTMH and Junior Chamber International USA, or JCI, who have a record number of summit attendees this year. And a special welcome to those joining to represent our fellow campaigns. And thank you to each of you, those of you who have been involved for many years, to those of you who are joining us for the very first time today. This year, we have a record number of participants, nearly 500 people from more than 40 states and more than 21 countries around the world, which is phenomenal. Before we jump in, let me give you a sense of what's on tap for today. So we will first hear from our global partners about the status of malaria programs and how they've had to adapt and innovate in light of COVID-19. Then we'll take you to the malaria front lines in northern Nigeria and an insectary in Thailand. We'll have some fun with trivia. There are prizes, thanks to our partner Cotopaxi, so make sure to pay attention and to play. Following a 20-minute break, we'll transport you to the malaria front lines in the Americas, followed by a dynamic conversation about the power of the diaspora, and end with a brief meditation led by Peace on Purpose. We want to hear from you and for this to be as engaging as possible. The Nothing But Nets team is on hand, so please use the chat feature to say hi, let us know where you're joining from, to share your reflections, and ask questions throughout the program. Also, please help us keep the conversation going. Make sure to follow Nothing But Nets social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and feel free to make your own content, making sure to tag Nothing But Nets, hashtag NBN21, hashtag On the Front Lines, and hashtag EndMalaria. Now, we're going to take a quick look to see some of our incredible champions and partners who are joining us from across the country and around the world.
Hi, my name is Jeff from Casper, Wyoming, and I am committed to ending malaria.
Hi everyone, Kara McCarthy here with SC Johnson in Racine, Wisconsin. Welcome, and thank you for raising your voices in the fight against malaria.
Hi, I'm Anirudh Mandalapu from Union City, California, and I am committed to ending malaria.
Hey, what's up? I'm Bess Pearson, CEO of Aptiv Environmental, and we are super excited because in 2022 we will pass $1 million in donations with our great partner, Nothing But Nets. We couldn't be more thrilled to have a partner like them, and we encourage all of you to partner up as well and help us end malaria.
Hi, I'm Dawson Askell. I'm a Nothing But Nets champion from St. Louis, Missouri, and it's going to be my generation that ends malaria.
Hi, my name is Zainabou Ide. I'm the program officer of Impact Santé Afrique. We are based in Cameroon, and we are truly convinced that together we can end malaria.
My name is Dr. Monica Sahani. I'm an associate professor at a university in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a Nothing But Nets champion. I'm excited to end malaria.
Hi, my name is Miki Nagashima with Malaria Noma Japan in Tokyo. We can end malaria together.
Hi, I'm Marcia Cantor from Denver, Colorado, and I'm a Nothing But Nets champion.
Hi, my name's Ross Bailey, working for Malaria No More UK here in London and the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for raising your voices to help end malaria.
Hello, I'm Dr. Nashwan Al-Othman. I live in Northbrook, Illinois. This is my 5th Leadership Summit, and I'm committed to be the generation to end malaria.
Hi everyone, my name is Jimlo Olatunde from Lagos, Nigeria, currently in Washington DC studying at Howard University, and I'm committed to ending malaria.
Hi everyone, my name is Adriano Schneider. I am from Brazil, living in Long Beach, California, and I'm a Nothing But Nets champion. Welcome to the 2021 Nothing But Nets Leadership Summit.
Oh, that was so fun to see some of our partners and champions across the country and around the world. We're now going to check out a helpful overview video that the World Health Organization, or WHO, and the RBM Partnership to End Malaria pulled together, which includes the perspectives of a number of malaria and global health experts, country leaders, and partners about how they are responding to the double challenge of malaria and COVID-19. We will then hear directly from Dr. Tedros, the Director General of the WHO, who filmed a special message just for UN Foundation champions and advocates like you.
COVID-19 has provided a sobering reality check threatening the lives of those we care about and undermining our health systems, economies, and social well-being. Since the early days of the pandemic, WHO and partners have been deeply concerned about its impact on essential services for many diseases, including malaria. Countries around the world have reported disruptions in access to life-saving healthcare and in the delivery of key malaria commodities.
When COVID soared up, we were threatened with the possibility of all services stopping. All servicing stopping because all attention of the health system, of the leaders of government switched to COVID.
At the beginning of the COVID-19, we observed that people were not visiting the health facilities because they were afraid of going to the health facilities and getting in contact with others who might be infected with the COVID virus.
In Nigeria, the country that carries the highest burden of malaria, the depleted health workforce, diversion of resources, and interruption of supplies compromised the delivery of essential services. In India, lockdowns and travel restrictions threatened to reverse the impressive gains seen in reducing malaria over the last decade. Other countries aiming to eliminate malaria, such as Suriname, also experienced major setbacks.
COVID led to travel restrictions and intermittent, partial and full lockdowns of the country. So we had very little freedom of movement at some time. And also the COVID led to international markets for antimalarials and lab supplies becoming under pressure.
In many settings, the lack of personal protective equipment compromised the safe delivery of health services.
I think it's important to say that the lack of access to personal protective equipment has been an issue. And as I mentioned, this underscores the need for a commitment to equitable access to essential commodities under a framework of true global solidarity.
Despite the myriad challenges, many countries have succeeded in sustaining essential services to protect people from malaria and diagnose and treat those infected.
There was a remarkable coming together and energy around how to adapt and do bednet campaigns differently, how to get through some of the disruptions to the supply chain. So I think collectively as a community, that was a really commendable achievement. And I think a lot of people on the ground in the countries did some great stuff to make that happen.
The pioneering work of Benin to safely deliver insecticide-treated nets was followed by many other countries with a high burden of malaria. South Sudan delivered nets in the face of COVID and other emergencies, such as severe flooding. Uganda protected and motivated health workers and secured the necessary commodities to fight both malaria and COVID-19. Cameroon safely and effectively delivered preventative anti-malarial medicines to children at highest risk of malaria. Through these and other efforts, many lives have been saved. But the battle is far from over. COVID has upended health systems in countries around the world, and many critical services remain disrupted. These disruptions have compounded the challenges that many countries were already facing in their malaria responses before COVID-19 struck.
As the World Malaria Report had shown over the last 4 years, we had stalled in our progress. And while we have had a fantastic decade of progress, reductions in morbidity and mortality, the last 3 or 4 years were showing the challenge that we are facing.
Addressing the double challenge of malaria and COVID will require leadership and political commitments that are translated into budget lines and resources. It will require stronger health systems with integrated services, local intelligence, and reliable local data.
We are learning and acting differently. For instance, Mozambique has strengthened integrated delivery of services at community level. We believe this approach will yield value for money, firstly, by investing both in disease control programs and in strengthening health services delivery, and secondly, by rallying other sectors and communities to support disease control.
country ownership is essential. This isn't just about ownership of data, but full ownership of the data in terms of using it on a day-to-day basis to respond to the challenges and to be problem solvers.
It will require global solidarity and trust, with all levels of society working together.
Interventions such as social distancing and wearing masks or sleeping under insecticide-treated mosquito nets and taking prophylaxis require the entire population to work and respond together. What all of the successful examples we've heard have in common is an approach that builds on these values of trust, solidarity, and the whole of society response, with the countries at the center.
Whether tackling malaria or COVID-19, success can only be achieved through smart investments in health, protecting the economy, and leaving no one behind.
Countries need not choose between protecting their populations from COVID-19 or malaria. They can and should do both.
Investing in health is investing in prosperity, especially if you get the right investments implemented properly. So let's keep remembering about economic impact and keep reminding everybody that that's why we're making such a fuss about malaria, about COVID, and about other health threats.
Above all, the urgency of the COVID-19 pandemic has compelled us to rethink our approach to malaria responses worldwide, with a greater emphasis on listening and learning from countries.
I think it's very important that the voices and the knowledge that exist at the front line and in countries where this disease is a major health problem, those are going to be critical voices going forward.
As the WHO Director General has said, we must listen to their voices, learn from their experiences, and heed their call.
Hello, I'm Tedros, Director General of the World Health Organization. COVID-19 has tested each and every one of us this past year. But we will get through it by working together as a family of nations in solidarity. Since the founding of WHO in 1948, the US has played a vital role in global health. We're grateful to America for both its generosity and its global role and leadership. As individuals, your voice matters. WHO and the millions of people we serve depend upon your support and advocacy for our work on diseases like polio, measles, malaria, for responding to humanitarian crises like in Yemen, and for our mission to ensure no one faces financial hardship simply as a result of seeking the care they need. The pandemic has also demonstrated that when health is at risk, everything is at risk. But when we protect and promote health, individuals, communities, economies, and nations can flourish. I want to thank you, the United Nations Foundation, and especially my friend Elizabeth for all your work. Together, we will end the pandemic, but we must do more than that. Together, we must make sure that health is not a luxury, but a fundamental human right and the cornerstone of the safer, fairer, and more sustainable world we all want.
Well, that was a powerful call to action from Dr. Tedros. Together, we must make sure that health is not a luxury, but a fundamental human right, and the cornerstone of the safer, fair, and more sustainable world we all want. With that, I'd like to introduce you to Elizabeth Cousins, the UN Foundation's president and CEO. In addition to being Dr. Tedros' friend, Elizabeth has been at the forefront of global policymaking and innovation for over 20 years. She is a diplomat and thought leader who has worked on the front lines of peace processes in places like Bosnia and Haiti. She served with UN missions in Nepal and the Middle East, played an influential role in UN policy innovations such as the Sustainable Development Goals, and helped build public-private partnerships to solve global challenges at scale. We're really fortunate to have Elizabeth as a leader of the UN Foundation and are grateful that she could join us to lead our next session titled Unite for Health, Leave No One Behind.
Thank you for that warm introduction. I am so pleased to be part of Nothing But Net's 2021 Leadership Summit and to welcome you all today. It is hard to believe that it has been more than a year since many of us were together in Washington, D.C. for last year's Summit and Advocacy Day, which took place just days before COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. And it has been such a challenging year on so many levels. So on behalf of all of us at the United Nations Foundation, I cannot thank you all enough for your perseverance, your commitment, and your presence today to ensure that we protect and build on critical progress, accelerate our work together to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, especially Goal 3 on good health and well-being for all, and that we truly unite for health. We know now more than ever that the really big challenges, whether that's COVID-19, systemic racism, climate change, or malaria, one of the world's oldest and most pernicious diseases, require big thinking, acting, collaborating. That's why it is so gratifying to see all of you coming together from across the country and around the world as individual citizens, as leaders of global health organizations, as private sector partners, united in your determination to end malaria and to create a healthier and more equitable world. And your work matters. Your voices matter. Your advocacy matters. Lives, both right now and in the future, are at stake. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time and making this such a priority in your work and lives. With that, I'm delighted to welcome you now to the Unite for Health, Leave No One Behind session and introduce you to our two esteemed guests, Peter Sands, the Executive Director of the Global Fund, and Valentina Buch, UNICEF's Global Malaria and Health Partnerships Advisor. I won't regale you with all of Peter and Valentina's accomplishments because there are many, but just a few highlights. Peter Sands, before becoming the Executive Director of the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria in 2018, was the CEO of Standard Chartered PLC, one of the world's leading international banks. He's been a research fellow at Harvard University for years, worked on a range of policy innovations in financial markets, and long also appreciated the need to invest in global health security and pandemic preparedness. He's been an extraordinary leader of the Global Fund, leading it to its most successful replenishment yet in 2019, where donors pledged a historic $14 billion over 3 years and committed to save an additional 16 million lives, something everyone on the line today knows about and advocated for. The Global Fund is, of course, a crucial player in the fight now against COVID-19, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that shortly. Valentina Buch is the Global Malaria and Health Partnerships Advisor at UNICEF. UNICEF is arguably the best-known UN agency working in over 190 countries to promote the rights and well-being of children in all respects. Valentina has spent much of her time on the malaria front lines, working in endemic countries such as the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, and Madagascar, and in areas ranging from net distribution to integrated community case management to supporting community health systems. Welcome to both of you today, and thank you again for taking the time to be with us. So with that, I'd like to jump right into the conversation, and I want to start with some background. So Peter and Valentina, the Global Fund and UNICEF both have played such a significant role on the front lines of the malaria fight. So to start off, can you give us just a brief snapshot of your organization's historical roles and your footprints now when it comes to addressing malaria? And Peter, I want to start with you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And can I start, actually, you mentioned the replenishment and the Global Fund raising a record $14 billion. And I want to start by thanking all the Nothing But Nets, grassroots champions, advocates, partners, for the fantastic support we got, and which was crucial to getting particularly the US element of that $14 billion. For those of you who are new to the Global Fund, The Global Fund was created in 2002 and raises, well, if you do the math, $14 billion over 3 years is, roughly speaking, $4.7 billion a year from both donor governments and the private sector to fund the fight against HIV/AIDS, TB, and malaria. And the Global Fund represents over half of all international financing for the fight against malaria. Specifically from the US, Congress pledged to fund in the last replenishment $1.56 billion per year for the period 2020 through to 2022. And that's a 210 million increase per year over the amount we raised in the previous 3 years, so 2016 to 2019. And Congress's leadership on this was absolutely instrumental in getting other donors to step up as well. So even before COVID, we were incredibly excited at working alongside the other biggest funder of malaria programs in the world, the Presidential Malaria Initiative, PMI, because we had the opportunity to step up the fight. Of course, then, since then, COVID has happened and created a very different context, which I'm sure we're going to be talking about, in which to combat malaria. But what I would say is the Global Fund is absolutely committed not just to mitigating the impact of COVID on the fight against malaria, but actually to be sustaining the momentum towards ending the epidemic and saving, of course, millions of lives.
Thank you, Peter. Valentina, let me turn to you.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. I'd also like to really start by thanking the United Nations Foundation and the Nothing But Nets grassroots partners and donors for their support. You have truly been our greatest champions, as this particular campaign has been our most consistent donor, with nearly 20 million provided to support our country offices to deliver on the front lines in complex operating environments. Malaria is of particular importance to UNICEF, as it is the third largest killer of children, right behind pneumonia and diarrhea. When I started working in malaria nearly 20 years ago, we used to say a child died of malaria every 30 seconds. We've managed to extend that interval to 2 minutes, but that still means we are losing nearly 300,000 young lives every single year. Malaria is also particularly affecting pregnant women. We know that every year, approximately 125 million women living in malaria-endemic countries throughout the world become pregnant. At least 10,000 of these women and 200,000 of their infants will die as a result of malaria during pregnancy. UNICEF is therefore focusing not only on children, but also on pregnant women. UNICEF also particularly is focusing on socioeconomic determinants of malaria. Malaria is a disease of poverty. It is also a disease of war and famine. Children who are malnourished are far more likely to catch and die from malaria. We are thus working across all the different areas where UNICEF is present in health, nutrition, water and sanitation, education, and health system strengthening to ensure that we can bring a comprehensive and holistic package of services to children, to mothers, and to their families to ensure that we are addressing those who are most affected by malaria and most vulnerable. Take, for example, education. When kids are sick, they cannot go to school and their parents cannot go to work. We also have seen the risk of severe malaria to cognitive development. UNICEF is therefore working across the spectrum to reduce school absenteeism and ensure parents can continue to receive income to prevent malnutrition, pay for health services. For me, it's particularly important because both my children were actually born in Kenya. And so when I became a mother in a malaria-endemic country, it became a very particular impetus, and it put a fire in my soul to really work across UNICEF's entry points to really drive malaria out. I was very, very lucky that I could have a safe birth and that my children could be protected from malaria. But I know that on the 2 days my children were born, their birthday twins didn't have the same services. And so this is a very personal fight for me.
Thank you so much, Valentina. I want to thank Peter for underscoring the thanks and appreciation to our grassroots champions and also congressional leadership in the United States, the two obviously being really related. And Valentina, you're really powerfully talking about the intersectional way that malaria plays out across every issue that affects children and families. I want to turn to the COVID COVID-19 pandemic and the impact on malaria of it. We all know too well now how much COVID-19 has posed a significant threat to progress against malaria, indeed a threat to all of the work against other vaccine-preventable diseases and other health conditions. I recall hearing WHO's warning at the start of the pandemic that malaria deaths could double due to COVID-19. And my understanding is that thanks to the amazing work of people on the front lines, to countries, to some flexibility among donors, we've likely averted that worst case scenario, but we do still anticipate an increase in malaria cases and deaths. So I'd like to hear more about how the pandemic has impacted your programs, the adaptations you've had to make, and the state of play now. And I'm sure everyone would also really love to hear the main lessons you feel we've learned, especially as we think about beginning to build back and to build back in a different and stronger way. Valentina, I want to start this time with you.
Thanks so much. So let's start with some of the big, scary numbers. COVID has put 168 million school children out of school. We know that they have been unable to access their schools for nearly a year. We also know that child poverty has increased. We see that the children living in monetarily poor households has increased by about 140 million by the end of 2020. And unfortunately, we've seen that as of November 2020, 6 to 7 million children under the age of 5 could suffer from wasting or acute malnutrition. Malaria is unfortunately highly interlinked with malnutrition. We know that at least 50% of malaria deaths are underlain by malnutrition. I know these numbers are horrible. I know these numbers are scary. However, knowing these numbers and knowing where these children are has helped UNICEF to really prioritize our programming. Most of the investigations that we've been doing at country level has shown that disruptions to essential health services are driven by fear. Communities are fearful of seeking care for their sick children with fevers because they're afraid of being infected by malaria, by COVID. Unfortunately, they may have malaria, but they're too afraid to go and seek care. So a few of the areas where UNICEF has been working is helping train community health workers. We've been working with donors like the Global Fund and many others to ensure distribution of personal protective equipment such that essential health services, including malaria case diagnosis and treatment and prevention, like bed nets, and their campaigns could go ahead in safety. We've also been using new digital technologies, so looking at new ways to empower communities and healthcare providers through SMS technologies. So we are learning everything that we possibly can from COVID to build back better.
Thanks so much, Valentina. Peter, your thoughts?
Yeah, just building on Valentina's comments and sort of stepping back a little bit. We were all very worried about what was going to happen to things like BedNet campaigns and to the supply chain. And there was a huge amount of effort across the partnership, from people in country to global agencies like UNICEF or the Global Fund to PMI and so on, to both secure the supply chain and actually work with local partners on how to adapt BedNet campaigns to the realities of a COVID and lockdown context. And so, for example, most BedNet campaigns went from having a model where typically you took the truck with the bed nets to the village center and then everybody gathered to get their bed nets, to a model where you had volunteers on motorbikes taking bed nets to individual houses. And that worked. And actually, although some of the campaigns last year, and we were tracking 38 different campaigns in different countries, got a bit delayed, most of them actually happened and happened at the right scale. But it cost more money. We had to be issuing personal protective equipment, PPE, to the health workers involved. We needed more motorbikes. And it took more time to actually do this kind of door-to-door delivery. One thing we did is, on top of our normal funding, is we mobilized an additional $1 billion last year to deploy to help countries both respond to COVID itself and to adapt their HIV, TB, and malaria programs, and to pay for exactly this kind of adaptation that I described with BedNet campaigns. Going forward, though, I think we have to acknowledge that in many parts of the world, we're still in the middle of the crisis. I was just looking at the numbers today, as if deaths from COVID-19 in the first half of 2021 will probably equal or exceed deaths in the entirety of 2020. And I suspect that the knock-on impact on malaria, HIV, TB, and other diseases will also be greater this year than last year. And I think the bit of the malaria interventions that I'm most worried about and concerned about, and again, Valentina touched on this, is case management at a community level. We are incredibly dependent on the incredibly dedicated, committed, individual community health workers who go into villages, diagnose children and pregnant women, treat them. But if those community health workers get sick with COVID, there's very little backup. And the system can kind of fall apart extremely quickly. And that's why it's things like PPE, protecting our health workers, is extraordinarily important for sustaining effective case management for malaria. Prompt, well-managed case management is the difference between a child getting a fever and then getting better, and then a child dying. It's that kind of direct and straightforward. So one thing we are actually very encouraged about, and again, the grassroots champions, the legislators in Congress have played a fantastic role here, that within the American Rescue Plan Act that's just been signed by President Biden, there's $3.5 billion for the Global Fund's COVID-19 response, which includes actions to mitigate the impact on malaria programs. And so we are now, thanks to the generosity of the United States and to your extraordinary advocacy, in a position where we can not just continue, but step up our support to countries that are wrestling with this perfect storm of pressures on their health systems, devastation to their economy, and there's a real urgency about doing this. We need to be very focused this year on managing that knock-on impact on malaria, particularly in the poorest and most vulnerable communities in the world.
No, thank you. And I hear among all of that two really big themes. One is about agility and just the ability to have organizations and resources organized in such a way that you can adapt to really fast changing circumstances in ways that deliver the most essential things to communities that most need them. But the other is stamina and really seeing through this task, because it's almost the most risky time now when there are vaccines rolling out in some countries at really extraordinary rates, that people begin to feel that it's possible to shift gears when actually the job isn't done. So I really appreciate both of your thoughts on that. I want to go a little deeper on this question of equity. COVID-19 has exposed an awful lot about health inequities, and it's exposed it everywhere from the United States to globally, with some populations much more at risk, with much less access to testing, treatment, vaccines, et cetera. And I recognize every country's version of health inequity is different, but I want to hear your thoughts on how we overcome those barriers. Some of them have been around for an awfully long time. How do we do better to ensure that health is understood by everyone as a basic human right, that we truly need to unite for health, that we don't leave anyone behind, that that's important for all of us, whether it's overcoming COVID or ending malaria? And I want to turn, Peter, actually to you first on this one, and then Valentina.
You're absolutely right. COVID-19 has exposed sharp inequities both within individual societies and across the world. And while I don't like those inequities at all, I think it's good that a sharp light is being shone on them, because the reality is that the fact that we're still fighting malaria, a disease that we know how to win against, where we've demonstrated in multiple countries around the world that we can get rid of, is itself a kind of shocking inequity. This is a disease we know how to beat. We know that doing so makes a phenomenal difference. And yet, actually, the world as a whole has put relatively little money into malaria. I mean, we deploy, roughly speaking, about $1.2 billion a year, and we're by far the largest provider of funding for malaria. But in the scheme of what is being spent on COVID, this is not one order, not two orders of magnitude smaller. It is a tiny, tiny fraction. And so I hope that COVID will force us to look harder at how we think about health as a human right, the inequities of access to health. We have a bad record as a world, frankly, of thinking of things as health security threats, as pandemics, when they are, to put it bluntly, killing people in rich countries, and then thinking of them as unfortunate humanitarian development issues when the same diseases are no longer killing people in rich countries, but only killing people in poor countries. And that's true of malaria. It's true of HIV. It's true of TB. And we really shouldn't be happy about that. I mean, it's outrageous, really. These are diseases we have demonstrated we can win against. And I hope that, well, the first thing I hope, we can't do the same with COVID. When we have, high vaccination rates in the rich countries of the world, we can't lose interest and suddenly say, oh, well, COVID now is just a kind of long-term development humanitarian issue we're going to have to deal with over the longer term. We've got to finish the fight against COVID. And while we're about it, why don't we use it as an impetus to really step up and finish the fight against these other diseases?
Well, that is a call to action if ever there was one. Valentina, your thoughts?
I think if we make the comparison between COVID and malaria as both a disease of individuals and a community level disease. And by that, I mean, humans are the reservoir for malaria. When one person is infected with malaria and they don't have access to a bed net, they don't have quick access to case management and diagnosis, they can infect thousands of people if the mosquitoes are present. Guess what's exactly the same? So is COVID. One person, one asymptomatic person with COVID can decimate nursing homes, whole communities. So if we start thinking about this individual community paradigm, and exactly as Peter said, how do we pull together? How do we pull that bright light to look at those communities, those poor, fragile communities, especially in conflict zones, in areas where we cannot get to them? They're the ones who are not being immunized. Guess what? They're also the ones who aren't getting TB treatment. They aren't getting HIV treatment, and they're definitely not getting malaria prevention or case management. So I think we have this extraordinary opportunity to use integrated touch points. Every time we go into a community, you can't talk about just one disease. You have to talk about what is it that affects those communities. We've got to use primary healthcare systems, and we have to mutually leverage each other's strengths. Everyone always forgets that the E in UNICEF is for emergency. It gives us a great wherewithal because we never leave. UNICEF never left Somalia in the height of its most severe fighting. So we have these extraordinary colleagues. My colleagues are amazing people within UNICEF. They work so hard and they're always present. And they're there making sure children wash their hands, get to school, get food, and get malaria prevention. They're also out there fighting against prevention of mother-to-child treatment for HIV. They're also out there doing ring fencing for immunization, ring fencing for pediatric TB. It's an extraordinary opportunity to truly put together and get malaria off the map everywhere.
Wow, thank you both. I mean, I think you both so powerfully underscored just the uniqueness of this moment we're in right now, and over the next several months, how much there is this opportunity to really do things dramatically differently, and to overcome some of the barriers and the incremental progress that has while good just only been incremental for far too long. I want to ask you one final question. You have gathered, listening to you online, an incredible diversity and breadth of champions, experts, advocates. And I just want to ask you finally, in closing, what essential messages do you want to give to our summit participants? What do you want them to walk away with as their charge for action? Valentina, I'm going to go first to you, and then we'll close with Peter.
So in the nearly 2 decades that I have been working on malaria, colleagues working at the Global Fund, PMI, UNF, and Nothing But Nets have made the tagline, malaria is preventable and curable, a reality. It's an extraordinary, extraordinary moment. We're seeing more and more children come up malaria diagnostic, an RDT negative. That is a historical, incredible achievement. For me, my mother is from El Salvador. My grandfather was a district health medical officer, and he used to tell me stories of fighting malaria. El Salvador was just declared malaria-free a few weeks ago. I want one day the birthplace of my children, Kenya, to also reach that historical achievement.
Wow, thank you so much. Peter.
I just want to echo Valentina's joy at El Salvador's announcement, and I think it's a fantastic achievement, and it's once again proof that it's doable. It's absolutely doable to get rid of malaria. Look, over the last 12 months, everybody on this call has experienced what it's like to have a life dominated by an infectious disease. It's scary. It's irritating, it's frustrating, it means you can't do the things you would like to be doing, sending your kids to school, working in the way you would want to work. Welcome to the world that communities in places that malaria is highly prevalent. Welcome to their world. That is what they live with every day, every year. Of course, the wrinkles of it are different, but malaria is an oppressive presence. It's a huge burden on the lives of individuals, of families, of communities. And I hope we take, in the same way that there is this massive mobilization of science, of resources, of governments, of everybody, to say, well, we can't live with this with COVID. We've got to get our lives back to normal. And so we should take from the urgency, the problem solving, the new salience of global health, the sense of solidarity across the world, not just the determination to get rid of COVID-19, but also to get rid of malaria.
Well, thank you so much to you both. This conversation was just fantastic. It was substantive and inspiring in equal measure. And really, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for everything that you've done throughout your careers and every day in the fight against malaria, the fight against COVID, and all of the work you do to support the most vulnerable people and populations and communities everywhere. I think you've left us with a very strong message that we do have a truly unique opportunity right now. Obviously, to finish the job on COVID, which isn't yet done, but also to use the new insight, the new empathy, the new urgency that we are gaining in the course of this terrible pandemic to renew our determination to end a disease like malaria that shouldn't be punishing communities worldwide the way it continues to do. And that the only way to get there, the only way to build stronger, more resilient systems, and the only way to ensure that we truly leave no one behind is by working together and uniting for the health and well-being of all. So thank you for everything you do every day to that end, and thank you again for joining us.
I hope you found that session enlightening about the tremendous work of UNICEF and the Global Fund, and while sobering, also inspiring about how we now have a unique opportunity to do better, to work together in new and innovative ways to ensure that we leave no one behind in our efforts to end malaria and create a healthier, more equitable world. I'd now like to turn to one of our summit sponsors and longtime partners, Vestergaard, a global manufacturing company who for more than 2 decades has been committed to using business as a force for good to address some of public health's greatest challenges. Vestergaard, which recently announced its B Corporation certification, has leveraged its innovation and technology platforms to create products that have contributed to efforts to eradicate guinea worm, address food insecurity, increase access to clean water, and help end malaria, vis-a-vis their long-lasting insecticide-treated net, Permanet, and now Permanet 3 that helps overcome insecticide resistance. In the last session, we saw photos of Vestergaard's nets being distributed door-to-door in Benin at the start of COVID-19. Nothing But Nets has partnered with Vestergaard for many years, and most recently, we're grateful for the support of the United Nations Foundation's Unite for Health campaign, their active membership of the Business Council of the UN, and their overall support for our advocacy and communications efforts, including this year's Leadership Summit. Today, we're joined by Vestergaard CEO Michael Josse. He joined Vestergaard in January 2020 with 25 years of experience in medtech and biotech, where he developed a track record of building high-impact teams in startup mode, growth stage, as well as mature business environments, spanning a variety of products and services. We'll now hear from Michael.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. For those that don't know Vestergaard, we are a 60-plus-year-old company that believes doing good is good business. Unlike most companies that complement their business strategies with corporate social impact activities, for us, the social impact is at the very heart of our business plan. In the malaria space, Vestergaard is most known for its permanent brand of long-lasting insecticide bed nets, where we are proud to be counting down towards our 1 billionth manufactured bed net. In the spirit of Unite for Health and leave no one behind as a manufacturer of malaria prevention bed nets, we wanted to make sure that despite the limitations COVID imposed on all of us, that we would not delay the delivery of innovation by ensuring production ramp-up of new technologies and ensuring robust supply chains during these trying times. I commend the teams at Vestergaard, but also those of PMI Chemonics, Global Fund IDA Foundation, UNICEF, Against Malaria Foundation, and others who have worked tirelessly to ensure supply of these life-saving products was not disrupted. However, despite the fact that the humble bednet has accounted for almost 70% of the malaria cases averted since the millennium, progress against the mighty mosquito has stalled. And that even before COVID. Case numbers have stopped reducing. Insecticide resistance, the most likely culprit, had significantly reduced the efficacy of bed nets. It has become apparent we could not continue with the same old tools used for the past 20 years, and that we must, as the Global Fund had asked us to, step up the fight. This has led to 2 new classes of bed nets being developed, including PBO Synergist and clovenapir-based bed nets. However, we should all ask ourselves a simple question. Can we develop new insecticide-treated bed nets faster than the mosquito can mutate? Bed net chemistry in polymer science takes years to identify, develop, and approve. This slow pace is partly appropriate, as we must ensure the bed nets are safe to use and effective. One key problem, however, is the long time new bed nets take to be adopted widely in campaigns after they have been fully developed and ready for deployment. In short, we launched new life-saving bed nets too slowly. We believe that an improved framework is required to ensure we deploy such tools timely, rapidly, and with an at full-scale cost structure. To do so, we'll take 3 key elements. Firstly, continued adequate funding for next-generation technology. Second, better evaluation tools to ascertain fast and speedy efficacy. And third, a more strategic engagement with the private sector. We have harvested the low-hanging fruit of the last 20 years. New bed nets require a step change in level of complexity management, complexity of active ingredient combination screening, complexity of the polymer science in how to bind such chemicals to a bed net, and not least, complexity of manufacturing. This takes, in our view, a higher level of cooperation among stakeholders than before, and we applaud the work done by organizations such as the IBCC and vehicles like the New Nets project with generous backing from the Gates Foundation and many others to help in that process. New technology will most likely cost more, and the malaria community, which has gotten used to reducing prices over the past years, must factor this in when planning its malaria interventions over the next years. But higher cost can also be higher cost effectiveness and improved impact from improved bed nets. However, to measure cost effectiveness, we will also need better evaluation tools than what we have today. What does it take to demonstrate more impact for the generous investments made? Randomized controlled trials currently required for demonstrating the public health value of new nets are expensive and lengthy. If we calculate the cost of the time bed nets are not deployed at full scale, while such multi-year studies are underway, then the cost to populations at risk is higher than what we should accept. We believe we need to complement these traditional studies with simpler tools to evaluate bed net effectiveness in different geographies in a systematic way, and to make the data readily available in an ongoing and timely manner. We believe that for the above reasons, a more strategic engagement between the key institutions and private sector technology innovators would be helpful. To bring next generation higher complexity innovation to market will require a more strategic level of interaction between the private sector and institutions buying and deploying these innovations at scale. By addressing these items, adequate funding, improved evaluation tools, and improved strategic stakeholder collaboration, we can better deploy capital towards innovation R&D and manufacturing ramp-up, thus stepping up the fight and ensure we unite for health and leave no one behind. It finally leaves me to say thank you to the UN Foundation's Nothing But Nets team for organizing this event and for their important advocacy work to sustain the political will and resources to end malaria. But as well to the entire malaria community. We are in awe of your hard work, dedication, and achievement, and we wish to continue to be your humble partner in the noble mission of ending the malaria pandemic once and for all.
Thanks, Michael, for Vestergaard's passion about radical partnerships, commitment, and again, support for the NBN 21 Leadership Summit. I'm excited to announce that we have people joining us from as far as Angola and Kenya, to Canada, to Switzerland, and across the United States. I also want to give shout outs to Eric Hyatt, Dr. Adriano Schneider, and Bixby Ho, who have been active on social media. Please join them. Don't forget to post on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever means you have, tagging Nothing But Nets and using the hashtags NBN21, End Malaria, and On the Front Lines. With that, I hope you've been paying attention because now we're going to turn to trivia with our arch nemesis, Mozzie the Mosquito.
Scram! Hey champions, I hope you've been paying attention. I'm back, Mozzie the Mosquito. You haven't seen me in a while, but here I am. We're going to play a game of trivia on Kahoot. Go to www.kahoot.it, that's KAHOOT.it, or if you're a seasoned professional at this point, open your Kahoot app and you'll put in the passcode that's right above me and on screen. You'll also find access to it on your website right now where you're watching this, this presentation. There is a Kahoot portal where you can put in the passcode, and I see some of our oldest champions, our seasoned members. Beverly, good to see you again. Nashwan, always good to see you. All right, let's see who else is brave enough to go up against Mozzie. We hope you've been paying attention. All the questions you hear will be based on things we've heard so far in our presentation. Make sure you're taking notes and seeing who the most focused champions are. Make sure you're also posting on social media, engaging, keeping it live with us here at Nothing But Nets. We have a special prize for the first place winner. There'll be a $50 gift card plus an amazing swag bag from our sponsor, Cotopaxi. It'll be a travel backpack, a t-shirt, and our water bottle for our most adventurous champions. All right, let's see how many people are ready to compete with Mozzie. We're gonna give you a few more seconds to join in, and if you want, you still have the passcode. It'll be posted in the chat, so join in whenever you're ready. All right, let's get started real soon. And we're into it. All right, Mozzie versus the champions. Let's see who knows more about malaria. We're gonna start with a poll. Who's ready to play? Are you ready to play? Yes? You're gonna win? You're excited? Or no, it's a total buzzkill? Let's see how you all are feeling. We wanna see who's paying attention. Remember, this is a game of speed. Awesome. Most people are ready to go. Some people think they're gonna win. I don't think so. We'll see. All right, the next questions get harder. I'm a malaria-spreading mosquito. What type of mosquito does that mean I have to be? Am I a female Culex, a male Anopheles, female Aedes, or female Anopheles mosquito? 10 seconds left on the clock. Let's see who knows what Mozzie is. 5 seconds left. You've seen me for years. What kind of mosquito am I? And whoa, 33 people knew the right answer. I'm a female Anopheles mosquito. Well done, everybody. All right. Who's in the lead? We've got Beverly in the lead. Woo! All right, we're going on to question number 2. It's still anybody's game. True or false? Over the last 4 years, global transmalaria case incidents have stalled. Is this true or false? Let's see. I know which one's good for me, but which one's good for what's happening in the world right now? 10 seconds on the clock. This music is fun. Let's see who's paying attention. So the answer is true. Unfortunately, global malaria incidents have stalled. That's great for me, but bad for the world. I'm glad most of you have been paying attention. All right, let's see who's in the lead now. Oh, wow, that shifted. We've got Kara in the lead. Okay. It's still anybody's game. Let's keep going. So according to the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, when was the World Health Organization founded? This is a question for my A students. Was it 1948, 1950, 1956, or 1938? Most answers have come in. 5 seconds left. Let's see what we got. And the answer is 1948 is the year the World Health Organization was founded. Well done. Most of you got that one right. All right, we've got a couple questions left. And now Jenny's in the lead. Whoa, you all are killing it. That's coming from me, the mosquito that causes malaria. Well done. All right, let's see our next question. Health programs supported by the Global Fund have saved how many lives since 2002? Is it 2 billion, 45 million, 28 million, or 38 million? I can't stand the Global Fund. Always get in the way of my plans. Let's see. You've got 5 seconds left, and you'll hear this number a few more times if you missed it in the first section. Let's see what we got. The answer is 38 million. The Global Fund has helped save, through their programs, 38 million lives since 2002. Well done. Most of you actually got that one. Well, many of you got that one. Whoa, we've got a new person in the lead. Okay, we've got one question left. We'll see who takes the grand prize. And this one's a type in the answer, so that means any answer you write in, if it's close to the right answer, we'll take it. What kind of net is manufactured by one of our summit sponsors, Vestergaard? So we heard from them moments ago. We're gonna see what kind of net is manufactured by one of our summit sponsors, Vestergaard. 3 seconds left to type in your answers. You got more fingers than I do, so go ahead. All right, so these are all the answers we got. Which ones are we gonna accept? All right, so anyone who typed in one of these answers, that is 1 for Permanet and 4 people got Permanet without the space. Well done. Awesome. So let's see what that did to the podium. In 3rd place, we have GT. Woo! In 2nd place, we have Victoria. And in 1st place, grand prize, we have HHHJ. So HHHJ, we need you to put your full name in the chat so that we can find out who you are. And you're gonna get a special prize from me. So keep an ear out for a buzz at your door coming from me with your gift card and your special package from our partners at Cotopaxi. Thanks again for playing. Keep active. And we're excited to see you. We'll be back for more trivia. Oh, no!
That's enough from you, Mozzie. Get out of here. Get out of here. All right, well now that we've gotten rid of Mozzie, I can show you this great short video by the Global Fund that showcases Rosemary, an incredible community health worker in Nairobi, Kenya, who has persevered in her job doing community outreach to address HIV, TB, and malaria despite the threat of COVID-19. Let's hear from Rosemary.
Ever since I was a little girl, I really wanted to be a medic. I had passion for helping people and saving lives. It was just like a calling. My name is Rosemary Wanjiro. I'm a community health volunteer. The pandemic has really affected my work, being that it's a scare to everyone. In our country, the PPE, they were really not there. So at some point, I felt exposed. We stopped contact tracing due to fear we might be taking infection to our clients. I didn't know how my children will react, but I just saw them run away from me. I felt stigmatized, I felt unwanted, unloved. Dealing with COVID is very tough. What gives me hope is there are so many people who have completely changed their lives through the treatment, through the counseling. The fact that I'm giving hope to people and saving life, that is enough to live for.
Hi, I'm Ngozi Elobike. I'm a lifelong learner, a global health practitioner, and a community organizer. I value team building, social entrepreneurship, community engagement, storytelling, and amplifying marginalized voices. In 2019, I graduated from Howard University with my bachelor's in science in biology, and then I went on to get my master's in global health and development from University College London. After training to become a community organizer through the Tola Organizing Academy, I decided to return back to the classroom. In September of 2021, I will be starting my master's in race, migration, and decolonial studies at University College Dublin. My purpose and path have been colored by my Nigerian background. When I was younger, my dad, who you see on screen now, next to my mom, always used to quiz me. He'd ask, what village are we from? What state are we from? What's the local governance? And although it was annoying, I knew it was his attempt to ingrain into me a strong sense of being and belonging. He wanted us, his kids born to the diaspora, to know that we were Nigerians. As a diasporan, we fear memory loss and amnesia, and a privileged positionality that distances us from our place of origin. Nigeria remains a stronghold in my life. Only through storytelling and lived experience am I able to keep it close, keep it vivid. Nigeria, like any country, is living and breathing. I'm careful as a diasporan not to paint in broad strokes and romanticize it. But more specifically, I am a proud Igbo Americana. This is best revealed in the minute moments of my life. The best example is me painstakingly reading Chinua Achebe's literature, carrying words to my parents, hoping for them to translate it, or learning Igbo through a virtual Zoom class, the language that my parents so easily speak. Lastly, it'd be watching my mom's reaction as she tastes my version of her egusi soup. The giant of Africa has given birth to some of the greats. I carry this tradition of greatness with me, hoping that not too much is lost in translation. I'd like to take you on a journey to this giant, Nigeria, accompanied by photos from global health partners taken on the ground in Borno State, Nigeria. Located in West Africa, the Republic of Nigeria is one of the most populous and culturally diverse countries in the entire world. Within the borders of Nigeria, there are over 206 million people coming from over 250 ethnic groups, speaking over 500 languages. Often referred to as the giant of Africa, Nigeria has the largest economy in Africa and the 24th largest economy in the world. This country is recognized as an emerging global power. Like so many countries around the world, though, Nigeria is not immune to the struggle for global health equity, particularly for those most vulnerable and at risk. I witnessed what it is to navigate the health landscape in Nigeria back in 2004. The funny thing is, she rarely gets sick nowadays, but on our second trip to Nigeria, my sister Chenema ran a fever a week after we arrived. It was malaria. It refused to respond to over-the-counter medication, and goosebumps decorated her shivering arms, although her temperature broke 105 degrees Fahrenheit. In angst, my mom carried her feverish body to the public hospital, but the long lines and swarm of people deterred her from being seen. Frantically, she asked around for a tropical disease physician. A private practice doctor was what she found after her prodding, located in Enugu State. The doctor immediately recognized my sister's higher vulnerability and lower immunity due to a life outside of the tropical climate. They began treatment immediately, and within 12 hours, she had not only been discharged, but her fever had completely rebounded. But ultimately, my experience is a discussion of privilege, a privileged positionality, and how that can grant people access to healthcare. But all Nigerians, continentally and in the diaspora, deserve access to the best disease treatment and prevention. Agencies like the United Nations Foundation are working to end healthcare fragmentation and bridge accessibility gaps. Nigeria is home to the highest number of global malaria cases and deaths. In 2019, the country reported over 80 million cases, 27% of the global malaria burden. Malaria tends to thrive in poor and rural settings, with children, pregnant women, refugees, and internally displaced populations, IDPs, bearing the brunt of the injustice. Malaria is also a tremendous economic burden. Every year, Nigeria loses about $1.1 billion due to malaria-related absenteeism and loss of productivity. This data paints a grim picture, but there is also proof of progress. Global Fund and PMI have partnered with the Nigerian government to support proven malaria control methods like the distribution of bed nets and training of community health workers. This has driven down malaria from 42% in Nigeria's population to around 27%. But progress has been compounded by many challenges, including a decade-long humanitarian crisis taking place in Borno State, Nigeria. Since 2010, armed conflict from groups like the Boko Haram have displaced more than 3 million people and caused the breakdown in delivery of essential healthcare services. Terrorist attacks targeted at the healthcare system resulted in the massive destruction of almost 43% of the healthcare infrastructure and departure of healthcare workers. Luckily, there are currently many people at the front lines fighting for health equity in Nigeria. I'd like you to meet some of them with a first-hand look of the voices on the front lines in Nigeria video by Nothing But Nets.
Hawa yake Hawa yake
Malaria is real, and it's really destroying the lives of future leaders.
Yaro na ya sha wahala, mun sha wahala kai. Malaria ya kama shi yayi tsanani har jinin jiki babu. Mun je asibiti an yi test ba ruwan jiki, ba jinin jiki.
If we can achieve free malaria society, then we will have done with about 70% of the disease burden in the state.
Malaria is a killer disease, but it's preventable if measures are taken.
The total malaria burden has reduced significantly over the years as a result of proactiveness of the Ministry of Health.
I want to say thanks to the GF and PMI for all their contributions so far. These contributions have taken us so far. I recall that in 2015, we had a prevalence level in the country 27%. But by 2018, it has come down to 23%.
Conflict is the main reason that has led to mass displacement of our population.
Na ba abin da ba gani ba, na ɗaki na ina fita gashi su ma sun shigo suna harbe-harbe, na samu na kakkama yarana na fitar da kaina don nan.
We have internally displaced persons camps almost all over the state.
With the insecurity and the endemicity of malaria here in Borno State, people are really suffering. We need some assistance.
Malaria this year was so much. We have, from our data, we had about 1,110 women that had antenatal, 480 were malaria positive.
Yana yi min wahala sosai, mutane suka yi min karo-karo suka yi min magani. Don ba ni da yaro babba wanda zai tallafa mu, akwai wahala, wanda bai da abin hannunsa ai.
What we learned, even at that time, was that some people are scared to even come to hospital because some of them that has cough or something of that nature or high fever, they are afraid that if they come to the hospital, they might be diagnosed as COVID patients.
The state is doing a lot to ensure that these vulnerable people are being protected.
We have the sectors, various sectors, about over 15 working sectors that are responding to their needs in the camps.
Definitely a lot of effort is happening, working with partners who are able to provide some measure of interventions in emergency situations. The goal of the national program is a malaria-free Nigeria.
So where malaria is not there, you see these women will be stronger, they'll be able to go to do their day-to-day activities, the children will be stronger, go to the school. eliminating malaria, like I said, as a midwife, as a nurse, as a healthcare, I think that would be one of the best things that could happen in this society and in this community.
Global Malaria Partners have aligned to support the ambitious goals of the Nigerian government to end malaria in pursuit of a brighter future for all Nigerians. The Global Fund has partnered with Nigeria since 2002. Their focus is on procuring critical malaria prevention and treatment tools for the distribution in both public and private hospitals, as well as community clinics. In addition, the Global Fund supports training of healthcare workers and invests in social behavior change activities that promote proper use of malaria tools. PMI has been a proud partner in Nigeria since 2010, helping to decrease child death rates by 16% from 2008 to 2018 through investments totaling almost $635 million. They've done this through the procurement of malaria tools and collaboration with the National Malaria Elimination Program, also known as the NMEP. It is vital that we continue these programs in order to continue driving down the rates of malaria in Nigeria and around the world. And that's why you're here, to encourage your members of Congress to do just that and spread awareness throughout our communities. So thank you for joining me on this tour of Nigeria and at the Leadership Summit. Your efforts will have a lasting impact in the fight to end malaria. I'm going to pass the mic now over to Margaret to introduce our next section.
Thank you, Ngozi, for sharing your story and for taking us on that moving tour. I hope it provided further insights into the tremendous efforts of country and community leaders who, with support and in partnership with the Global Fund and PMI, are working to end malaria in Nigeria. It also showed how private sector partners are stepping up to address acute needs in challenging humanitarian situations. Speaking of, I'd now like to turn to one of our summit sponsors, Bayer, and specifically Bayer's Environmental Science Unit. Bayer has a long heritage of using science to help create a better life by advancing health and nutrition. Bayer's Environmental Science Unit works to protect environments to ensure food security, health, safety, and well-being. They have been innovating on the front lines of malaria control for over 60 years. We recently partnered with Bayer to help protect 10,000 homes in Haiti in support of the country's goal to eliminate malaria. We're thrilled to now be teaming up with Bayer and the Mentor Initiative to launch an indoor residual spraying, or IRS, campaign that will protect nearly 400,000 people living in Borno State from malaria and other vector-borne diseases. Bayer has made a generous in-kind contribution of its dual-action IRS spray Fluidora Fusion, a groundbreaking insecticide that protects homes from malaria for up to 1 year and kills mosquitoes on contact, including those who are resistant to other insecticides. We will now hear from Gilles Gaillou, CEO of Bayer's Environmental Science Unit, and Dr. Alaji Cisse, head of Sub-Saharan Africa.
My name is Gilles Gaillou, and I'm the head of the Bayer Environmental Science, a unit of Bayer Crop Science. Our mission is to foster a healthy environment. The fight against vector-borne disease is essential to our purpose. So I'd like to talk to you today about 3 elements that are really fundamental, which is partnership, commitment, and innovation. Over the last 2 years, we've partnered with UN Foundation Nothing But Nets campaign by supplying our solution to prevent malaria transmission in some of the world's most vulnerable communities. In 2020 to Haiti, we dramatically reduced malaria cases, protecting more than 50,000 persons. These positive results have inspired us this year to make an in-kind contribution of our solutions for the use of Borno State in Nigeria. enabling the Mentor initiative to scale up the vector control activities this spring to protect an additional 400,000 persons and reduce malaria by 60% in the targeted area. We are happy to support the Nothing But Net teams to amplify the visibility of this impact on the ground. We believe more than ever, as the world focuses on the COVID-19 pandemic, that funding and support are essential if we want to draw the line against malaria. As the sponsor of this event, we are proud to contribute our innovation and raise our voice to this cause. Commitment. Our commitment is long-term. Over the last 60 years, we continue to build our long-term commitment and expertise. I'm honored to lead a team of over 50 highly dedicated experts who are committed to researching, developing, and supplying innovative solutions, including indoor residual sprays and active ingredients for insecticide-treated bed nets. Last year, we supplied indoor residual sprays products to protect more than 30 million people. As a signatory of the 0x40 declaration, together with companies like BASF, Mitsui, Syngenta, and Sumitomo, and overseen by the Innovative Vector Control Consortium, we are committed to one overarching goal: to eradicate malaria by 2040. Innovation. The path to eradication is not without hurdles, and we've seen a decrease in the slowing down of cases over the last few years. One important hurdle where, as a science and innovation-driven company, we can play a role is in overcoming insecticide resistance. We have increased investment into new vector control product development nearly 5-fold over the last 10 years, successfully bringing to market in 2019 a new and innovative indoor residual spray, Fluidora Fusion, produced in South Africa and today being used by national malaria control programs in more than dozens of countries across the continent.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alaji Sise, and I'm the head of Bayer Environmental Science for Sub-Saharan Africa. We are very delighted to be providing Fluidora Fusion to Mentor Initiative. We do hope that it will have a huge impact in the fight against malaria in Borno, where malaria is the leading cause of death. Fluidora Fusion is the first ever insecticide that combines two active ingredients with different modes of actions, providing optimum efficiency even in the context of insecticide resistance. Fluidora Fusion has been tested through 23 trials in 16 African countries and had provided efficiency but also long residualities. And we believe that with this experience happening in Borno, we'll have more data that can support evidence around IRS that could be used in Nigeria, where 1/3 of the total malaria is happening, but also beyond Nigeria, in Africa and beyond. Our commitment in malaria has been here over the last 16 years. Indeed, we are investing in local data generations to make sure that we take in consideration reality in every part of Africa. To finish, we just want to recall this famous African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So together with all the stakeholders, I have no doubt we'll be winning over malaria.
Thank you, Alaji. We firmly believe in the value of partnerships. Incredible things can be accomplished when people across all sectors work together, united behind a common goal. In the weeks and months to come, we are looking forward to seeing positive results of these partnerships, which we hope will make a difference in fighting malaria on the front lines in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thanks again to Bayer for all of their work and partnership. And also, thank you for the social media shout out. I also want to let everyone know that Dr. Tedros, the head of WHO, has retweeted us. I want to thank Joyce, Andis David, Lisa Van Nostrand, and others for echoing what's happening here in the conversation on social media. Please join them. Again, tag Nothing But Nets, hashtag NBN21, hashtag On the Front Lines, hashtag End Malaria. Thanks so much for making sure this conversation doesn't just stay here, but reverberates around the country and the world. So now, speaking of travel, we're going to travel to Bangkok, Thailand, to hear from leaders at the Armed Forces Research Institute of Medical Sciences, or AFRIMS. AFRIMS is a biomedical research and development platform supporting U.S. force readiness through the development of medical countermeasures mitigating the threat of infectious diseases. AFRIMS is the oldest and largest laboratory of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, or RARE. Thai and U.S. military science teams collaborate on research addressing threats such as malaria, antimicrobial resistance, influenza, and Zika. As some of you may know, Nothing But Nets has advocated about the critical role that AFRIMS, RARE, and the Department of Defense overall play when it comes to research and development to advance the fight against malaria and other disease threats. I'll now turn it over to Colonel Norm Waters, the Chief of the Department of Bacterial and Parasitic Diseases, and Major Wesley McCardle, the Chief of the Department of Entomology, who will give us a quick glimpse of the work being done in AFRIMS laboratory and insectary.
Welcome to AFRIMS, the Armed Forces Research Institute of Medical Sciences, located in Bangkok, Thailand. I am Colonel Norm Waters, Department Chief of Bacterial and Parasitic Diseases. Malaria has been the #1 infectious disease threat to the Department of Defense, and I am thankful to Nothing But Nets and the American Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene for raising awareness to defeat this devastating disease and bring together leaders to find novel solutions. Here at AFRIMS, we have been on the front lines of malaria for decades, developing malaria countermeasures to not only protect U.S. forces, but also to reduce the mortality and morbidity associated with malaria. Southeast Asia has historically been the epicenter of malaria drug resistance, and there are now parasites resistant to every known anti-malaria drug. In response, AFRIMS continues to test and evaluate anti-malaria products against the most deadly parasites. Parasites isolated from volunteers enrolled in clinical studies are cultivated here at AFRIMS. These parasites are characterized to determine the level of drug resistance to current treatments. Data from these efforts help shape national treatment guidelines to ensure that the most effective treatment options are employed. Parasites are also tested against novel antimalarial compounds from malaria drug development pipelines, which are an essential step in developing the next generation of malaria drugs. Highlights of our malaria research at AFRIMS includes the execution of numerous clinical studies to evaluate the efficacy of antimalarial drugs. And these robust laboratory capabilities ensures a holistic approach to effectively develop malaria countermeasures. What you have seen here at AFRIMS is us facing the enemy face to face, watching its every move as it tries to circumvent defeat. AFRIMS is vigilant, and we are committed to defeat this enemy.
Hello, I'm Major Wes McCardle, the Department Chief of the Department of Entomology, Armed Forces Research Institute of Medical Sciences, and I would like to welcome you to our insectary.
The primary vector in Southeast Asia is Anopheles styrus. This forest mosquito requires large areas to successfully breed. In the laboratory, we have to use artificial breeding methods to ensure that the colony will continue to propagate. The mosquito life cycle begins with blood feeding, progresses from eggs through 4 stages of larvae and a pupal stage until 1 to 2 weeks later, the adults finally emerge. The department has hosted many visitors, from the U.S. ambassador to Thailand to several generals, even up to Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand themselves. We've also participated in family days and employee days, in which we show off what we do in our secretary to the members of the AFRMS family. School Outreach is a recent addition to our Insectary program, in which we go out to children of various ages and teach them about the biology of mosquitoes native to Thailand. As you can see, this is often a playful time for our Insectary team, in which they dress up to illustrate what mosquitoes look like. On behalf of the Insectary, I'd like to thank you for virtually visiting with us.
Well, thank you, AFRMS, for taking us on that virtual tour. It's pretty fascinating. I hope you've been paying attention, because now we're going to jump into another round of trivia with Mozzie the mosquito. I'm getting out of here.
Get out of my stage. Oh, feels good to be back in the limelight. All right, we're back for round 2. Well, I guess that's all the fingers I have. Back for round 2 with Mozzie the mosquito of another Where in the World is Mozzie? Remember, if you just go to www.kahoot.it, Kahoot.it, you'll put in the passcode and you'll join the game, or you can open the Kahoot app, or you can follow it on your viewer portal, and you can just put in the passcode and join us. So we'll give a little bit more time for folks signing in. And this time around, make sure you're putting in your first name, your first initial, and your full last name so we can find you easily. If you do choose to use a nickname, just please make sure we can find out who you are, because I really want to give you your gift. Again, that prize is a $50 gift card and a special swag bag from our sponsors at Cotopaxi. It's a fantastic outdoor backpack, a t-shirt, and a water bottle for our adventurous champions. All right, I'm seeing some folks that weren't in the last round jumping in. Very exciting. Come on in. We want some new competition. Let's see who can take me on this time. All right, we're excited to get started. And again, if you want to join in, just put your passcode in at any time. You can see it above me. It's 6634658. All right. And round 2. Let's start off with something easy just to see who's been paying attention, okay? See how everyone's feeling. We're going to do a word cloud this time. Let us know how you feel. Are you excited? Are you pumped up? You feeling a little bit more competitive this time around? Talk to us. We're excited to hear from you all. And we're loving all your posts on social media. The pictures are amazing. Keep them coming. All right, let's see what people have to say. Ooh, we're building a really nice word cloud. A lot of words. Big words. The best words. So exciting. Let's see what you all have to say about Mozzie. People are feeling energized. They're amped. They're ready to win. Wow. They're feeling amazing, great, inspired, pumped, excited. This is awesome. It is awesome. So glad to be back after a year. Stuck in my dark little mosquito home, back in the light where I want to be. All right, let's get into some real questions now. Make sure you've been paying attention. All the questions are based on things our speakers have said so far. So this May, Nothing But Nets will celebrate its anniversary. How many years have we been fighting to end malaria? Some of you have been with us for a while, so let us know how long you've been seeing Mozzie and the team coming to summits. How many years is Nothing But Nets celebrating this May? Is it 12, 15, 8, or 10? Let's see what the champions have to say. And most of you got it right. It's 15 years. This May, we're celebrating our 15th year anniversary. Really excited. Watch out for some great content coming. And let's see what the scoreboard has to say. Who's in the lead? We've got Mozzie 2. Make sure that you share your full name so we can figure out who you are, Mozzie 2, if you end up being the winner, that is. Let's go to our next question. All right, so earlier you met a community health worker named Rosemary Wanjiru fighting to save lives in what city in Africa? Was she in Lusaka, Lagos, Nairobi, or Kampala? What city was this fantastic community health worker working to save members of her neighborhood and her town? And we've got 5 seconds left on the clock. Let's see what our champions think it is. Who was paying attention? The right answer is Nairobi. Rosemary works in Nairobi. Most of you got that right. Well done. All right, our next question. It's still anybody's game. We've got Joshua in the front. All right. Hey, the Andes family, welcome back. Now, which country in Africa carries the largest share of the global malaria burden? You've heard this a few times so far, and you'll hear it a few more times if you've missed it. Was it Benin, Nigeria, Tanzania, or Uganda? Let's see what the champions have to say. All right, this is a tough one. Make sure you're paying attention. 3 seconds left. And our answer is Nigeria, and the overwhelming majority of you got that right. Well done, everybody. Woo! All right, that's where I do most of my work. So Joshua is still in the front, in the lead. That's fantastic. Let's see if he can keep the lead with our next question coming up. This one, you're going to type it in. So, what is Nigeria's nickname? I'll give you a hint. Ngozi, in our last section, gave us a bit of clue about this one. Think back to her presentation. What is Nigeria's nickname? I see some answers coming in. All right. All right. We've got 5 seconds on the clock. Let's see what people have to say. I see the big one. I see no clue. It happens. And well done for those of you who put Giant of Africa or the Giant of Africa. Great job. You got it right. Well done. Wow. And the Andes family holding it down in first place. We've got Jeff sneaking up on second and Adriano in third place. Let's see who ends up winning with our last question. What is the scientific study of insects called? So what does it mean when someone's paying all their attention to little old me? Is it entomology, ethology, etymology, or epidemiology? It's just a fancy way of saying they pay a lot of attention to Mazi. But what is a scientific study of insects called? Think back to our tour through the insectary. What is that study called? 5 seconds left. Last question. Taking home the gold. Let's see who wins. The answer is entomology. Well done. Most of you got that one right. You guys are really smart. I'm getting kind of worried here. Well done. All right, let's see how the scoreboard finished up. In third place, we have Bix to the B. Nice name. In second place, we have Adriano. Well done. And in first place, we have, drum roll, we have Joshua Andes of the Andes family. Well done. Fantastic job. We're really glad that you all played. Again, keep an ear out for a buzz at your door with a package. That'll be your $50 gift card and a swag bag from our partners at Cotopaxi. Well done. All right, guys, it's been really fun being with you. I've enjoyed this. Before our 20-minute break, I want to share a few quick reminders. Please continue to use the chat function if you have any questions or just want to shout us out. That's fantastic. And keep engaging on social media. Use your hashtags on the front lines and your hashtag NBN21. We want to keep hearing from you. Keep spreading the word. Hope you're about to use this time to grab a meal, stretch your legs. I know I'm looking for my next blood meal. We'll see you back in 20 minutes. And we're going to have some more awesome content for you. We're going to transport you to the malaria front lines. You can see what people are doing all around the world to stop bad guys like me and keep people safe. We'll also have a great session, the Power of Diaspora panel, when we come back, and we'll end with Peace on Purpose meditation. But now I present to you the Mosquito Clap Challenge, created by our partners at Zero Malaria Starts With Me, a global movement to end malaria. It's going to be great. We're excited to hear it. Look forward to seeing if you can practice it. I know I've practiced for a bit, but get up here and let's do this dance. All right, and make sure you look out for me because Mazi makes an appearance in this video too. See you soon.
Hey, yeah. Malaria, malaria, it's time to go. Yeah. It's time to go. Malaria, malaria, we'll get you down to zero. We'll get you down. Yeah, we're clapping together. Clapping together. Chase you away. Chase you away. A simple dance and a simple clap will go a long way. Listen, Corona, Corona. You won't fool us, we see the bigger picture, big picture. Without you, sauce to keep fighting malaria. Malaria, yeah. Even as you fight us, you fight us. I say, oh yeah, Corona, Corona. You won't fool us, we'll keep fighting. back. I say fight back. Hold it, somebody give me a clap.
Hope you had a good break. Excited for another round of program. I was excited to announce that we've had nearly 1,000 views from around the world. We've had people joining from as far as Australia to Angola, Switzerland, and across the US. So we're super excited to have such a global audience and that all of you are choosing to be with us today. Thank you. I'd now like to hand it over to our amazing Nothing But Nets champion, Renee Perez.
Hi everybody, my name is Renee Perez and I'm a Nothing But Nets champion. I'm currently volunteering and living at an animal shelter in Portugal, so please excuse the bunk beds in the background. I came of age against the backdrop of the Venezuelan crisis. When oil prices plummeted in 2014, things took a sharp turn for the worse. Food and medical imports declined, state corruption flourished, and Venezuela, whose survival hinged on oil, collapsed before me. The economic crisis and the collapse of local health systems gave way to an unprecedented resurgence in mosquito-borne illnesses, including malaria. According to the Pan American Health Organization, in the last 9 years, malaria cases in Venezuela have increased by over 700%. As an advocate, I see myself as a partner to the work that is carried out daily to end malaria in Venezuela and around the world. Since 2017, I've had the honor of advocating with Nothing But Nets for malaria elimination, by writing op-eds, organizing local events, partnering with UNA USA, and meeting with members of Congress. Nothing But Nets has given me an incredible platform to advocate for the issues facing other Venezuelans. Venezuela's health infrastructure is at a weak point at a time when healthcare needs are high. Global health programs and NGOs play a vital role in increasing the country's ability to prevent and treat illnesses like malaria, especially in remote, hard-to-reach communities. That is why the work of people like Dr. Luis Gerardo Castellanos is so important. Dr. Castellanos works at the Pan American Health Organization as the Unit Chief of Communicable Diseases and Environmental Determinants of Health and Neglected Tropical and Vector-Borne Diseases. Born in Guatemala, Dr. Castellanos earned his medical degree from San Carlos University School of Medicine. There, he provided support to medical students placed in conflict areas so they could serve communities during the war. He was then awarded a scholarship to pursue a Master of Public Health from the University of Puerto Rico. After earning his PhD in epidemiology from the University of South Carolina, he joined the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Within the CDC, he served in the Epidemic Intelligence Services Field Training Program for 2 years. Dr. Castellanos then lent his service to the New Mexico Department of Health's Border Health Office, where he focused on health issues affecting international borders. Since 1997, he has served in various posts within PAHO, including medical epidemiologist and international advisor in the prevention and control of infectious diseases in Honduras, Brazil, Mexico, and the US. Over the course of his career, Dr. Castellanos has amassed extensive expertise in outbreak investigation and control in the Americas, including the implementation of outbreak prevention and control strategies in the context of natural disasters. Today, Dr. Castellanos leads PAHO efforts to prevent, control, and eliminate neglected and vector-borne infectious diseases like malaria, dengue, Chagas, and leprosy, all throughout the Americas. He also oversees PAHO's public health entomology program. It is my honor to welcome Dr. Castellanos to speak with us today.
It is with great honor for me to join you today on behalf of the Pan American Health Organization to speak to you about the challenges of fighting malaria in the trenches of the Americas. Much like the global trend, progress in reducing the malaria burden in the region of the Americas have stalled since the year of 2015. Just between 2015 and 2019, cases of malaria and death have increased by 66% and 26%, respectively. The rise in cases was influenced primarily by the sustained epidemic of malaria in Venezuela, which has recorded the highest number of malaria cases in its history. Additionally, an overall case increase of approximately 50% was also reported in Colombia, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Guyana, Nicaragua, and Panama. But don't lose hope. There are very good news too. More countries of the Americas have effectively stopped malaria transmission and achieved elimination. In the year of 2019, Argentina was certified as malaria-free, duplicating Paraguay's achievement of 2018. And in 2020, and despite of the damaging impact of the current COVID-19 pandemic, El Salvador completed the 3 years requirement without local transmission and was recently certified as malaria-free in February of this year, 2021. And Belize is also on track to be certified as malaria-free in the year of 2022. Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, the overall malaria situation in the Americas has been depicted by a reduction in the number of confirmed cases reported during the year 2020 as compared to the previous year. This overall reduction may have been influenced by a decreased health-seeking behavior and reported decrease of malaria personnel activity due to mobility restrictions, deficiency in the supply of personal protective equipment, limited availability of personnel in health, and all ending in less testing and less detection. However, it should be noted that comparing the years of 2019 and 2020, 5 countries have reported increases in malaria cases. Overall, to date, the COVID-19 pandemic seems to be having a varied impact on the malaria situation in our region. On the one hand, COVID containment measures like mobility restrictions may be affecting some determinants of transmission, like the slow in economic activities linked to the occurrence of malaria and mobility between communities. On the other hand, the same restrictions of mobility plus the disruption of health services are clearly affecting early detection and treatment interventions, therefore minimizing the diagnosis of malaria with an ultimate overall decrease. Given the complex and challenging scenarios faced by the countries of the Americas nowadays, I wish to emphasize that work in malaria must not halt nor diminish, not even with COVID-19 or any other challenge for that matter. Countries have the knowledge and the understanding, sufficient tools, and the experience to eliminate malaria and other diseases. There will always be new threats and curveballs that will come our way, but we must steadfast in our malaria elimination goals. We are very fortunate in this region to have the support of the United States Agency for International Development, the Global Fund, the Inter-American Development Bank, the United Nations Foundation, and other partners who work with PAHO to bridge the gaps and solve problems alongside our affected countries. We need these partnerships to continue and whenever possible, expand them. Remember, we are as strong as we are together, and each of us has something important to contribute. My sincerest thanks for the opportunity to join you all on this day.
Hi, my name is Ama, and I'm the campaign associate with Nothing But Nets. In this session, we'll be traveling throughout the Americas to learn how countries across this region are showing that malaria elimination is possible. El Salvador recently proved this when early this year they became the first country in Central America to officially eliminate malaria from its borders. Let's see how they did.
Sí, definitivamente esto es algo histórico, es que todas estas intervenciones sanitarias que se han venido haciendo con el tiempo están rindiendo frutos. Estamos bastante agradecidos con todos los que han participado en este trabajo, porque necesitamos no solo haber logrado la erradicación, sino que necesitamos también sostenerlo en el tiempo y para eso se necesita todo ese apoyo.
Yo tengo 10 años de estar ya con ellos, definitivamente con vectores de malaria, y he visto la eliminación de la malaria.
Este logro del país es un gran incentivo para continuar todas las acciones encaminadas a prevenir la reintroducción de la enfermedad.
Epidemiológicamente lo estamos llevando muy bien, ¿verdad? Porque hay una vigilancia epidemiológica excelente.
La otra situación que nos ha permitido ir en avanzada es vincular a lo que es la población u otros sectores, que es la multisectorialidad, para la toma de decisiones de forma oportuna.
Este gran logro no hubiese sido posible sin la participación de la comunidad, otros actores claves comunitarios, autoridades locales, personal de salud comprometido, el apoyo de las agencias externas como la OPS y otros socios claves.
Ha sido un año difícil, pero a pesar de esta pandemia no han disminuido todas las intervenciones que los diferentes trabajadores están realizando día con día para poder garantizar que continuemos con este resultado positivo ante la malaria.
Yo, como colaborador voluntario, tengo 22 años. Siempre nosotros dándole seguimiento, porque nosotros como colaborador y como comunidad tratamos la manera de que esto desaparezca de aquí, porque aquí ha quedado aislado. Hay personas que sí, bien honestamente vienen y me dicen, mire, yo he estado con temperatura, o la niña, qué sé yo, hágame el favor de sacarme la gotadora, yo dejo de hacer lo que estoy haciendo y véngase y yo se la doy. Se la saco inmediatamente.
Bueno, yo creo que la lucha de la malaria es una lucha de todo el mundo, es un apostolado al final, porque las personas trabajan arduamente, se sufren lluvia, sol, tantas cosas, pero creo que la recompensa final precisamente es la satisfacción que uno ha salvado vidas.
Now we're headed to Ecuador, a regional success story for what it looks like to reach the last mile on the malaria front lines. On this tour, you'll hear music from the Jivaro indigenous communities in Ecuador. In the year 2000, Ecuador had around 800,000 cases of malaria. By the end of 2019, the country had reduced their cases to just under 1,900. Migration between Colombia and Peru, climate events like El Niño, poverty, and limited access to healthcare in rural areas all contribute to the country's challenge of ending malaria for good. In 2008, Ecuador established a free public healthcare system to promote health equity for all. In collaboration with the Pan American Health Organization, the World Health Organization, USAID, and Canada, health officials in Ecuador are gaining the technical skills they need to hunt down every last parasite. Involving all levels of society in Ecuador, from community health workers to schools to churches, is vital to Ecuador's strategy to end malaria for good. Currently, malaria in Ecuador is concentrated in hard-to-reach tropical areas of the coast and the Amazon jungle, with indigenous people, mobile workers, and migrants living at high risk. In 2020, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we visited Ecuador with our good friends at Cotopaxi. After traveling for more than 10 hours by car, plane, and boat to the Morona Santiago region, we were able to meet with groups from the Jivaro indigenous communities. These groups included the Achuar and Shuar people who live here along the rivers of the Amazon rainforest near the borders of Peru. We had the opportunity to meet health workers like Turupia Sumpa, a Ministry of Health trained microscopist. Here he tells us his motivation for returning to his home community to fight malaria.
Turamuna mashka generanaship irok musajnom no 2006 nom nuinati warnak mi kuramar sumun maya kuramar tawi tenonia ensang munia tukuk pohaku kuramar sha teno kapait sarmi ainsur no kinja kanu inge vikya unuimet chami hai hutakatnak. Amati shanuka mahuning ke kuramar awasam ti huning ke takat nakat tu nukap takat makite nukap numban jarum hai ain janisha mawarasar numban jahumaminya.
The commitment of healthcare workers like Turupia is absolutely vital to defeating malaria, particularly for girls and women. In fact, ending malaria offers one of the most significant opportunities to improve maternal and child survival. Pregnancy can make women more susceptible to severe symptoms of malaria infection. Just listen to Lucrecia describe how malaria impacted her when she was pregnant several years ago.
Entonces mucha gente se enfermaban, tenían vómitos, diarrea, tenían fiebre. En esa temporada no había la persona quien atiende de malaria, pero sin embargo me tocó vivirlo de paludismo, me cogió y estaba embarazada yo. Estaba embarazada de 6 meses. Me llevaron al seguro y me decían que tenía VIVAX avanzado. Tenía mucho miedo porque no podía levantarme, no podía ni comer y luego me ataca fiebre fuerte, casi una semana pasé sin medicamento, no tenía que tomar, no había nada. La niña también nació con el paludismo, entonces le hicieron tratamiento a mi chiquita también y ahora estoy luchando por mis guaguas, con mis hijos que no se enfermen también.
Around the world, malaria in pregnancy contributes to 10,000 maternal deaths each year. It is also responsible for up to 200,000 newborn deaths. Thankfully, there was a happy ending to Lucrecia's story, and we're so grateful for all the dedicated individuals determined to build a brighter future for all Ecuadorians. But Ecuador isn't the only country in the Americas that is on the cusp of driving out malaria from its borders. Let's take a trip to Haiti to see how they are hunting down every remaining malaria parasite with background music from our amazing champion and Haitian-American singer-songwriter Felicia Ross. Hispaniola Island, shared by Haiti and the Dominican Republic, is the only Caribbean island left with malaria. Haiti has come close to eliminating malaria several times for the last few decades, proving that while elimination is possible, the last few miles can be tricky to navigate. Currently, Haiti is back on track towards elimination for good. In 2018, the country reduced cases below 10,000 for the first time in decades. This is even more impressive when you see the rates of malaria just 8 years earlier, in 2010, when a 7.0 magnitude earthquake claimed over 200,000 lives. This natural disaster destroyed much of the country's fragile health system and resulted in malaria skyrocketing across the country. The districts of Grand'Anse and Sud, some of the last remaining malaria hotspots in Haiti, with over 50% of the remaining malaria cases in the country. In the past 10 years, Haiti has received technical and financial support from partners like Malaria Zero. Launched in 2015 with a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Malaria Zero is an alliance of cross-sector partners working to end malaria in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. This partnership has prioritized community responses to drive out malaria from Haiti for good. Community health workers like Jean-Robert Victor are on the front line implementing this strategy of community response. Listen to Jean talk about his motivation for driving out malaria from his community.
Grand'Anse, c'est un département d'indicateur rouge par rapport à la malaria. Par rapport à ça, moi-même, je suis un monde qui est exposé à la malaria. et tout compatriote moi tout censé exposer, je trouve l'important pour me jouer un rôle dans le travail ça pour me permettre que nous arrivions, même si nous ne pas dire éradiquer la malaria au grand complet, mais nous sommes capables de réduire au maximum. Bon, stratégie, je trouve que c'est une très bonne stratégie parce que là, le résultat que nous escomptons, que nous cherchons, parce que les méthodologies que nous utilisons sont vraiment adaptées à la réalité zone, tout ça. Je nous vais présenter à mon niveau, tout ça, parler de l'objectif. Travail nous vient faire, sensibiliser sur le travail nous vient faire. La permet que nous prenons des mesures appropriées pour arriver un jour à éradiquer la malaria.
When malaria is prioritized and driven at the community level, the results are life-saving. This couldn't be more true than for Elsie Hanvier, a mother and community member in Moron Grandans. When her 2 children got malaria, Elsie knew exactly what to do to make sure her kids got the care they needed.
Moi j'ai 2 petits mois. Li bayo la fièvre chaque après-midi. Et puis li bayo gros aussi pour l'en genou yo, li yo fait le faible. Et puis yo senti trembler, la zizi. C'est ça que fait nous aller examen pour lui. Yo bal 3 comprimés. En plus tard, la fièvre la chaud. Là les 11h m'a contrôlé, 11h par 1h, il est tombé.
After Elsie told us her story, the Ministry of Health, with support from the Global Fund, conducted a mass bednet campaign in her community in 2020. We were able to talk with her again to understand the impact of this campaign.
Je sais que moustique est la même. Bon, moustique est important pour pet pas modo ni maringouin. Il y a bon malaria pour les pêcher.
Haiti has adopted a phased approach to malaria elimination to reach 0 cases by 2025, and they are well on their way. They have reduced malaria by 39% since 2015. U.S. foreign aid helps equip global health actors like the Pan American Health Organization, the World Health Organization, the Global Fund, and PMI to guide countries in building on the successes of the past decades. Overall, the U.S. spends only 1% of its total budget on foreign assistance. We can afford to do this and still meet the needs of Americans. As COVID-19 has revealed, we must invest in global health. Examples like El Salvador, Ecuador, and Haiti prove that these investments are vital to strengthening health systems and driving out malaria in the Americas for good. Now I would like to welcome back the Nothing But Nets champion, Ngozi Elobwike, to introduce our next session.
Hi again, I'm Ngozi, a champion with Nothing But Nets. Community engagement, particularly with African youth, is a huge passion of mine. So I'm excited to introduce the Zero Malaria Starts With Me Draw the Line video.
Malaria, we won't let you steal from us anymore. We are the generation that can end malaria.
Malaria, we are too strong for you.
We're too bold for you.
Malaria, we are too fast for you.
Malaria, I don't like you. Too fierce. Too smart for you. Malaria, don't even dare take our future with you. Malaria, you can't stop us. Nothing will keep these lines from growing. We are the generation that can end malaria.
It's time to take our future back.
Sakina Juf. I'm Senegalese.
I'm a model, healthcare advocate, and champion with Nothing But Nets in the UN Foundation.
My name is Felicia Ross. I'm a singer, songwriter, pianist, producer, entrepreneur, and of course, philanthropist.
My name is Arek Deng, and I'm the CEO of the Luo Deng Foundation.
My name is Lual Mayen, and I'm the founder and CEO of Junub Game. Junub Game, it's a video game company that uses the power of game to be able to bring the global communities together.
Thanks everyone for joining the Power of the Diaspora. My name is Sukena Juve. I'm Senegalese. I'm a model, healthcare advocate, and champion with Nothing But Nets in the UN Foundation. And I currently live in Los Angeles, and I'm really excited to be having this conversation. So I'll give the baton now to Lual.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Lual Mayen, and I'm the founder and CEO of Junub Game. It's a video game company that uses the power of game to be able to bring the global communities together. I am really excited to be part of this conversation today. This conversation is something that I've been looking at for a long time because I know the power of diaspora. And for me, who came from living in a refugee camp for more than 22 years back in Uganda, and for me to be in the state today, I feel like, there's a power, there is the opportunities that the diaspora can be able to do, because I believe that we can use our experiences to create a sustainable future for other people.
You just mentioned being part of something bigger, something larger. I want to ask everyone, as we are all members of the diaspora, and I know for myself, just the term diaspora meaning people from a place just dispersing from their homeland. To me, being a member of the diaspora is to be something bigger than yourself, being something bigger than the area, or being something that is bigger and not confined by the area you are from, or the language you may speak, or the way that you look, etc. It's something much larger than where you are at the moment. I feel like Senegal kind of is something that just flows through me, whether I'm there or not there. And that's something that I think is so beautiful about being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. So I just want to ask everyone, what does it mean being a part of the diaspora or a member of the diaspora to you? We can start with Arek.
Being part of the diaspora, I think first I agree with you wholeheartedly that being from your original country, so me being South Sudanese, it's who I am. It's in me, it's with me, it walks with me everywhere I go, it travels with me on every airplane. And it's something that I'm very proud to be. But I also feel that being part of the diaspora makes you a global citizen, somebody who has a little bit of every place that you've been to with you. And it gives you a different perspective that many people don't have in terms of understanding all of these cultures in the most positive way possible. Because when I say I'm British, I'm also very proud of that. I represented that to the highest level of the sporting competition level. And I am very proud to be from there and to have the most positive aspects of that society. And then having lived in the US or lived in different places, I always feel that you get to feel the beauty of those places. So being part of the diaspora, I feel that we have a power that normally some people are really searching for, but it comes so naturally for us that we walk into rooms and the first thing we feel and see is so much positivity. Regardless of how much negative is in, we are part of the diaspora community because we had to leave the negative and we wanted to run from the negative. So we are always searching for something bright in the room and looking for that one smile that you can connect with, regardless of what that person looks like or what language they speak. So I'm very proud of our diaspora connectivity.
You guys are getting me so excited because I am the only Caribbean person on this panel. When we think of the diaspora, man, I'm a diaspora of you guys in your countries. And it's so beautiful because reaching back, and me as a singer, it's like I represent a community of people in my host country, as you said so eloquently, the US, but also from Haiti. And being the first American in my family, I feel that same responsibility to my host country and to my origin to do good work and be a representative of the positivity, and also to advance the story, the connection of the diaspora deeper, because we can speak the language, the authenticity of the communication between us and our host, our home countries. We're the ones that'll get the trust and the honest feedback back to our people and from our people. So I think it's really cool. I'm your guys' diaspora. That's such a cool, thing to think of, and how deep those roots grow and how connected we really are.
The best thing about it is just the opportunity not to actually forget your root and where you come from, because that's actually what make us who we are. As you said, we are all from different countries. From South Sudan, I grew up in Uganda, and within that community, there was something that actually made me move from South Sudan to Uganda, which was like conflict. And then, but then for me, it's okay, as somebody who is right now in the US, how do I utilize this opportunity to actually be a voice for the people that I left behind? Because as Eric mentioned before, you are so lucky to be where you are. But then how do you take that opportunity to give back to the community? Person was actually meant to actually be the voice for other people, to actually come and tell people what happened. And I feel like for us as a diaspora, as people who actually have these opportunities, we become the voices for the people that we left behind, and just do our things. And that's something that I love about having the opportunity that we have today. Yeah.
And it's so cool that with us being from different places, we're able to amplify the voices of the place we are most familiar with. I was born in the United States, and I grew up here for the beginning years of my life, then moved back to Senegal. And I always thought that my experiences were able to help me bridge the two experiences, that being the Senegalese and the African American experience. As I am African American, I heard you mention earlier, you are the first American in your family. I'm first generation. The later half of my life, I moved back to Senegal, and that became my reality. That's what I grew to understand. And some parts of me are able to speak on very African American experiences, and some parts of me are very able to speak on very Senegalese experiences. So the uniqueness of how we grow up really shape our understanding of the world. And I think it's important because in advocacy, it helps you add stories. It helps you be able to tell and amplify voices that might not be heard at all. So I love that we just brought that up.
That is really wonderful. I want to get a question to Lual to share with us his journey to actually even developing the games and how you've come to do that. Because you shared with us at the beginning that you've lived in a refugee camp for 22 years. So how does someone who was living in a refugee camp comes to doing video games for peace at that? That is so powerful in so many ways. We would love to hear about that.
Thank you so much. Thanks. It's a question everybody asks me every time, and I don't get tired of telling it because it's who I am, and it's actually what made me to be where I am today. And yeah, as I mentioned before, my family is from South Sudan. And my family had to flee because of the war in South Sudan, finding a place of refuge in Uganda, in northern Uganda. As a child, I was born between the border between Uganda and South Sudan. And I would say actually for me, I was born in South Sudan because there's a place called Ashwa, which is like between Uganda and South Sudan when my family was actually fleeing the war. There's a lot of refugees, especially from South Sudan, that has the same story that I have. The refugee story is for everybody that actually flee their country. And as I say, becoming a refugee was like the only option that we have for my family, because there's nothing after that. The biggest thing like that really affected us is something that we are talking about today. Health. There was no good health care in the refugee camp. There was like too much, malaria outbreak every time. And really what inspired me so much to make video game was just an idea of growing up in a refugee camp. I remember asking my mom, and I was like, I want to buy a computer. And she looked at me, she was just laughing at me because there was no money, for her to buy for me a computer. And it was so hard for somebody who doesn't even have money to be able to buy Panadols for when somebody is sick and stuff like that, being able to ask something like that. But because she was a mother to me, she worked so hard to get for me my first computer in a refugee camp. I remember working every day to go and charge my computer. And to me, the only thing that really gave me the power was just the power to be grateful, the power to recognize that what I was living was my home, the power to realize that there are more people than I do that are actually going through the same thing. The power to realize that it wasn't a choice for my family to be able to become refugees. It was the power for me to understand that I am who I am and I can be able to survive. I can be able to create anything that I want to create. And really, it wasn't an easy journey. There is that power. There's that diaspora that actually helped me to be where I am today. I wouldn't be where I am today without the diaspora investing in me to be where I am today. So that's something that I'm going through. That's something that I'm sharing with many people and many youth, many young people. 60% of people in Africa are like all young people. But then how do we invest in them? There's so much talent. And one of my favorite quote of all time is talent is always there, it's distributed, but there's no good opportunity for those people.
You mentioned two things. You mentioned malaria outbreaks in the refugee camp, and you also mentioned the population of African youth within the continent being greater than 50%. We know that around 67% of malaria cases are all with children. And I want to just ask, why is the issue of malaria and global health important to you specifically? And I would like to extend the question to everybody else after.
It's very important for me because that's something that I experienced growing up in a refugee camp for all those years. And one thing I know about malaria and I know about refugees is that when people think about refugees, you have to think about, okay, where do these people live? Is it a safe environment? It's not a safe environment for this. It's not that safe. There's no clean water. And that's why it's something very important to me. It's really very important for the world to really understand that this is something every single day. Some people are dying because of that, not because it's their time, but because we don't have the right resources to be able to treat malaria. There's been so much work that has been done, especially when I was back in the refugee camp. There were nets that were provided, and that nets actually help people from getting malaria, often from mosquitoes. That's a great work that has been done for the past years to be able to prevent it, to be able to help more people. And I feel like we actually invest because it's not something that is just stopping.
You mentioned the nets and that being an essential on the refugee camps. Working actually with Nothing But Nets is how I met Felicia, and I just want to ask you your experience and why is the issue of malaria and global health so important to you?
So when we hear his story, it sounds normal to us. Refugee, running home. My family's from Haiti. My mom lived through the Doc and Papa Doc era when they were persecuting people and had to flee the country, like Lual said, not by choice, not because they wanted to leave their homes. And when we get in situations where we're not going through what Lual had to go through to get a computer, like for us all to be sitting here talking to each other, too often, especially in the countries that we're all from and that we represent and that I know from knowing Haiti firsthand, it's almost like they have to look at their health as a luxury. And so if I can do any small things or any big things or anything at all in order to ameliorate the situation for my people or to remind other people of what they're going through and to put into perspective a story like Lual's just by being of it, then that's my duty. And I feel like the more we have people like us doing this and groups like Nothing But Nets, you mentioned, Sukina, that you went back to Africa. How did that, and you said you had malaria. So how did that affect you? And how did you make your way into fighting for this as you do a part of your life?
Thank you for that question. Actually, I did move back to Senegal. So yes, I was born in the United States. I was going to school here. I like to say I feel as if I spent half my life in the US, the beginning half, and the later half in Senegal, which contributed more to my developmental years. Those were the years where I was understanding who I was. And I'm so grateful to have experienced that back in my home country, where I'm able to ground who I am in language and culture and experiences of people who look like me. And it is when I went back home that I got malaria and had the experience firsthand. I like to explain this to my friends who are not so familiar with this disease. In the United States, you get sick and you go to the hospital, or you're sick in school, or there's a nurse. These are not realities for everybody around the world. You get sick back home. I don't even think there was a nurse at my school. You get sick and it is almost something scary. And the first instinct isn't to automatically go to a doctor, a trained professional all the time. Sometimes it is prayer, or sometimes it is going to someone in the community that might be able to help, because healthcare is very expensive. People don't understand how much it is treated as a privilege in places that are still developing, because it is so scarce to find healthcare equipment or even education. Something as small as putting up a net at night and avoiding so much interaction with mosquitoes could save your life, because ultimately you would have less chances of contracting the disease. And a lot of times, because it's so far from the realities of a lot of my friends or a lot of people I know living in the United States, they don't understand that malaria is not only preventable, but it is also treatable. Yet there are more than 400,000 people have died from this disease in 2019 alone. When numbers are large to this extent, that could be your cousin, your friend's brother's mother, that could be your teacher's sister's friend. That's really scary to think about. As I said, I was affected by it too. And it is something very scary. In the moment, I thought I was going to lose my life. I was a teenager. Most teenagers in America are worried about breakouts and puberty and social media. I was worried that I was losing so much weight that I might die. My experience was scary and close to death, but I think about how privileged and blessed I was that my parents had the resources to help me get treated. But this is not the reality for everyone. It's more common that people do not have the resources to get treatment than they do.
We have a basketball program where we have over 2,000 kids. We always, on a daily basis, have a number of kids who are not able to show up because of malaria. We have now started putting funding on the side to rush people to the hospital or to provide them with the treatment, but it's always not enough, because the things that we need is preventable measures. I had my brother, who is privileged, right, in South Sudan, almost dying of malaria. And it's so important that people understand that global health is so important, because it prevents us from having the next leaders that we always say, oh, kids in Africa need to go to school. If they have malaria, they can't go to school. If they're sick, if they have no access to health, how can they go to school? How can the parents work if they are affected? It affects so many people that are close to us on a daily basis, and we don't even know it. You can have friends that come from areas that are high in malaria, and you don't know that they actually have just lost someone a week, a month, a year before that to malaria.
You said that so beautifully that what struck me from what you just said is like, through basketball, you saved people's lives, right? It's like everybody is responsible through their platform to use their voice or their gift. I know for me, I'm a singer and a figure that people look at for music and for joy from music. Well, I can also bring some healing by bringing information to people through my speaking, through educating people. How do you feel that you share your platform? You're a beautiful model. You're ripping up the internet with your beautiful photos. And I have had the pleasure of meeting you and know that you're a beautiful woman inside and out. How do you translate that message of, yes, I'm a beautiful model, but also I'm here to talk to you about things that are important to my people in the community and like saving the world and making it better? How do you feed people that information?
When I came to the United States and I was on my college campus, I didn't really care for social media. I didn't care for a lot of things like Twitters and Snapchats. I didn't even have the application. And my phone was simply for the use of it was a necessity. So when I came and I noticed how much everyone cared so much about being on the phone, posting a selfie. First, it was garnering attention online for an outfit that I wore or the way that I looked, vibrant colors, and being the face of certain things. I think that using this prominence, using this, I won't even say prominence, but using this influence for something larger than highlights and lip gloss, shoes and trending topics, but something more important, something that can save people's lives. A lot of times people don't know. Like, people get sick because they don't know. And it becomes a never ending cycle. I'm thinking to myself, I didn't know that not sleeping under the net, that 1 week I would get malaria. It was almost instantaneous. But imagine those chances. And I explained to my friends in America, getting malaria back home is like having the cold in United States.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the reality. If you're comparing such a deadly preventable disease to the cold, that is the degree of how rampant it is.
Being African, being South Sudanese, I know that malaria is there. I just didn't know how impactful it was to every second of their lives. So I'm talking adults and young people. While we were rebuilding a school in South Sudan, we spent so much time. We actually had to rush the headmaster, the head teacher of the school, to the hospital due to malaria. He was gravely ill that my brother picked him up, put him in a truck, and took him to the hospital. This is how serious it is for them on an everyday level. And we went into this thinking, we're going to do a basketball program. But that basketball program has so much responsibility in it, because also we became responsible for those kids. We became responsible for them every day. So when they don't show up, our number one knowledge, the first thing that comes to mind is malaria. So what do we need to do? Who knows where these kids live? Let's find out what's going on with them. Let's send one of our coaches over, or any of our coaches. They don't show up. That's the first thing. Even during this global pandemic where everyone is worried about COVID, we are still worried about malaria. The kids will literally say to you, I have malaria every day. What's COVID going to do? And with that said, I want to ask Lual, actually, how does global health, and I think you touched on this a little bit, but how does global health affect the gaming industry or the gaming platform? How can we look at that picture?
Really just understanding that games are really very powerful, that we can use them to just help people understand what other people go through. For example, when you look back up there, that is my main character for my game. And the reason is actually the game that I'm building is a game that helps people understand the flight of refugees, being from a war-torn country to what it takes to be from a war-torn country to be in a refugee camp. And when you're playing video game as a person, you really have to be in the shoes of other people. And I think that to us as the industry, and it's just making sure that we advocate and help people understand, actually, even the players understand that even this malaria is very important. It could be something in the game that somebody can experience, and somebody can be able to understand, oh my God, my character is not going to survive because if I don't feed them or if I don't give them the medicine, they're not going to survive. Just making sure that because it's a big industry, more people are playing the game, people begin to understand, just have empathy, because that's the most important thing right now. Like we are lacking in the world. It's not that we are not having the resources. We don't have the empathy to actually look, thinking that, there are more people that are suffering from malaria. There are more people, because it's not something that is part of you. It's not something that you get every time, but there are more people every single day. So to me, I think it's all about just understanding that we can have consequence of that, because there are more people that we are losing every single day. We are going to lose people that are going to be entrepreneurs. We're going to lose people that are going to be leaders of the world. We're going to lose artists, activists. And actually, that actually gave me the question to ask Felisa, because I think that your platform is amazing. And to me, everything that we do today has to start with an inspiration. You have to have you need to be inspired by something in order to do it. And I just want to understand, like, really what inspired you to use your platform today to advocate for global health.
You guys are all inspiring me so much to be inspired, because that's really all it takes in order to really help make positive change. It's to be inspired. Mm-hmm. On the front of global health, I would definitely say being the power of the diaspora, right? My diasporic understanding of that, I was now one of the privileged first world people by way of my family being immigrants to this country and giving me an opportunity to not have the same worries as they had. The basic worries that I worry about when I wake up here in America are not what my grandmama and all of my ancestors from Haiti had to experience. And so that's definitely inspired me. And I think I know, Sakina, you do it through modeling and influencing, the Luol Deng Foundation. Arek, you guys do it through basketball and education. You do it, Luol, through gaming. I do it through singing and music, because that was really brilliant what you said, because I don't think the everyday person understands that we can go in and champion our wants and needs in many different ways. What do you think we can do to influence other people, the everyday human being, to care about these, especially other people in the diaspora who love and appreciate their native homes and their origins just like we do? How can we influence those people and beyond to help this cause, to end malaria for good in this world?
I think one of the first things to do is to really be authentic within ourselves and share with them why this is so important to us. And also remind them that they do have a voice. Because sometimes what happened to us in the diaspora is that we come to these countries thinking that we are still second-class citizens. We still believe that we should always take the back seat. But we do have that voice. We do have the right. We do have the opportunity to change the course of some things that are happening in this world. And it's so important that we let them know that they do have those, and those who are able and are willing to practice, because it's still also a personal right to get involved. But some people want to be involved. Sometimes they don't know where to find those resources or how to even reach out and also feel like they are heard. So the most important thing is for them to know that they can be heard, they should be heard, and they do have the right to actually speak up. Or whether you are a citizen of the United States or any other country in this world, you can speak up. So you would be saving a life without having to even spend a dime. Do that and be proud that you are part of making change.
So I think that people understanding how preventable it is can definitely inspire people to step in and help. Like I said, I always told my friends in college when I was trying to help fundraise, you spend $5 on a coffee, $5 for a net, and you're actually saving someone. Like, it's not just for an extra luxury. I think that hearing these stats, hearing this information of how small of an action can have such a greater, massive impact on a population, and it's ultimately lives. I think with this global pandemic, COVID, we've learned how valuable life is and how something really small can take it. Just like that, we add another number. But when these numbers are representative of people's lives, it's game changing. It completely morphs the whole story. It changes what this number means. And if we can even take half of the children that are online shopping or scrolling on Instagram or doing whatever and make them realize, hey, this is a small action that you can contribute today into solving this global health issue.
Well, I think it's so inspiring that through you guys and hopefully me, people can see that no matter who you are, where you sit, what diaspora you're from or who you represent, that it's all of our jobs to fight for global health. We all, I think, have such an important responsibility, and I'm grateful that to know and meet other amazing people in the diaspora who don't forget, even through their eyes, that this is a collective experience. I'm grateful that we're all doing our part, and I hope we can inspire other people to feel the power that we have as the diasporic community. Thank you, Nothing But Nets, for having us all. And I hope that we can be a big part of the end of this epidemic of malaria.
Hey everyone, my name is Ashley Elliott, and I am kicking off my 9th year of advocacy for Nothing But Nets. I love this initiative. I love all the work that the organization is doing. And I'm super excited today to tell you a little bit more about this amazing program called the Peace on Purpose program. For the last few years, they have been going into different regions and working with UN partners and officials, people who work within the system. It's a partnership between Peace on Purpose, the UN Foundation, and Lululemon, and they're trying to make it more accessible for people to have strong mental health as well as do the work of peace building. Well, everyone get ready because Hero de Michelis is going to lead us in a meditation practice session starting now.
So welcome. My name is Hiro, and I am a Peace on Purpose facilitator. And I would love to offer you just a few moments. We call this practice a moment to arrive. And I guess the arriving refers to arriving to self, arriving to the integration of the experience and the day we have lived together today. And so I'll be offering some guidance and the space and time of a few minutes for breathing and for slowing down. As an opening, I will offer the sound of a bell. And all along these few minutes, I will offer some guidelines. Find a moment to find the position that works for you. You might be choosing to be standing with your feet, shoulders apart. Or maybe you will be choosing to be sitting down just like I am. Maybe finding your feet on the floor and your arms resting on your lap. Allow your body to take a moment to rest and settle in a position that feels both comfortable and attentive. Find a moment to elongate your spine, almost as if a cord was pulling up towards the skies. And maybe choose to let your eyes rest in soft gaze, or maybe even close them. Take a moment to find your breath, placing your focus, awareness, your attention upon your belly, noticing the breath ebbing and flowing. Maybe take a moment to let go of thoughts and worries and responsibilities. Maybe imagining that you're placing them in a suitcase. Maybe a suitcase to pick up if and when you need to after this practice. And inviting yourself to coming back over again to the experience of the breath in your belly. Noticing the ebb and flow of the breath. And whenever anything else different than breath comes up, remembering that you have that suitcase, place it in. As the practice comes to its completion, taking a moment to connect with a sense of intention for this practice and for the day to come. Maybe an intention of self-care, care for others. Maybe a moment to connect with a sense of kindness and nurturing. In a moment, I will offer the sound of the bell again to bring the practice to a close. As the sound disappears, if eyes were closed, maybe this is a good time to open them. letting them wander in the room you're in, and coming back. Thank you. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you, Hiro. And Peace on Purpose program. This has been a difficult year. It's been a challenge to breathe many times. So we appreciate all the work of Peace on Purpose. As Ashley mentioned, they're an incredible program, a partnership between the UN Foundation and Lululemon, working with UN agencies in more than 36 countries to essentially train UN agency staffs on meditation and mindfulness as to provide resilience in their really difficult work working in some of the most complex humanitarian environments in the world. So excited that we were able to show you a very brief piece of that program, Peace on Purpose. With that, I also want to give shout outs to many of our champions, and including Sue Kenya and Felicia and Arek Dang and Stan Chen, Valentina Bouge, and others who have been promoting and sharing on social media. We're so appreciative. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for joining our conversation today. With that, we hoped you had a really great day and thought that it was an inspiring, informative program. We covered a lot of mileage, from learning about the impact of COVID-19 on malaria and the importance of uniting for health and leaving no one behind, to traveling to the malaria front lines in Nigeria and the Americas, where we saw programs by UN partners, PAHO, the Global Fund, and PMI in action. We also learned about the important roles that the private sector and members of the diaspora are playing to improve the health of communities around the world. Tomorrow, we will dive deeper into the role that you can play and the actions you can take to end the injustice of malaria. You will hear from Dr. Raj Punjabi, the new head of the President's Malaria Initiative, and be virtually transported to the malaria front lines in Uganda and Benin. You will get an insider view of the political landscape in the United States, given the new administration and Congress resulting from the 2020 elections. And you will be trained by the Nothing But Nets team on how to be an effective advocate, whether you're signing a petition, making a phone call, or joining our virtual Advocacy Day on Tuesday for meetings with your members of Congress. Advocacy Day participants will also have the opportunity to meet and practice with your group. So please make sure to tune in tomorrow starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. In the meantime, we hope you have a great rest of your afternoon or evening, and thanks again for being with us.